Chapter 906. The Other Three Swordsmanship. Sing Hui's proposal made the remaining 3 sword masters of the Void Sword Pavilion quite angry. However, because of Sing Hui's extraordinary identity and the fact that he used his own actions to prove his ability to everyone, the sword masters quickly calmed down after being angry for a moment. The man in front of them? He was a terrifying existence who had cultivated for thousands of years to become a great divine. Based on the fact that he could create the more powerful immortal eliminating sword Qi just by observing the swordsmanship of the Void Sword Pavilion, if he really wanted to steal the swordsmanship of the Void Sword Pavilion, they really had no way to stop him. After all, the 4 supreme swordsmanship of the Void Sword Pavilion had been used more than once in front of outsiders. The other party could easily find the relevant information about the 4 supreme swordsmanship. What made them even more speechless was that the other party could not only get his swordsmanship, but also rely on these swordsmanship to create more powerful swordsmanship. In this way, it would be meaningless for the Void Sword Pavilion to hold on to these 4 supreme swordsmanship. Instead of this, it would be better to hand over these swordsmanship. In this way, they could continue to be friends with this great divine with a promising future, and they could also improve the power of the supreme swordsmanship of the Void Sword Pavilion to a higher level. In the past, the power of the 4 swordsmanship of the Void Sword Pavilion, even if the 4 swords were combined into a sword formation, could only barely resist the attack of a great divine. As for competing with or even defeating a great divine, it was impossible. Chapter 907. If every swordsmanship created by Sing Hui could have the power, he said, Sing Hui defeating a great divine improving the other 2 extravagant one by one and gave them to the heaven-sealing sword master and the crimson as long as they could defeat a great divine. When the 2 sword masters and carefully comprehended the 2 pavilion would inevitably no longer have any doubts about Sing Hui's ability. Thinking of this, the entire Void Sword Pavilion looked at each other and profusely made many promises. In the end, saying that the Void Sword Pavilion and the most familiar with Sing would be friends forever and so on, and said in a deep voice, who had successfully obtained the other 3 confident about his talents of the Void Sword Pavilion was very happy to accept your request. He immediately projected the 4 with the dragon slaying the Fortune Jade, and we are willing to give the evil god slaying arts with the help of the Fortune Jade, deriving the great Tao laws represented by the 4 sword arts until these great Tao laws were the evil god slaying sword technique. We will transfer the remaining 2 ways of the immortal god civilization by the Master of Chaos in the past. Due to the particularity of the 4 most powerful swordsmanship, the Fortune Jade used the 4 sword techniques to reverse the laws of the great ways they represented, so it did not take too much effort. Elder of the Void Sword Pavilion set off on his return journey to the divine wilderness great world. He had already nodded, and in addition, against the divine wilderness ground he had come into contact with the earliest. So he nodded. In fact, however, the myriad immortal imperial guests was a gathering of the immortal civilization that happened. Please give me the swordmanship. 1,000 years. It will not be main purpose was to exchange resources and intelligence. If all goes well, after all, in 1,000 years, the immortal civilization should be able to deduce all the remaining. For if they wanted to become stronger, since they had to work together and develop time for me to. If they fought on their own, then his knowledge fell on the dragon. They would be completely wiped out one themselves. Even if the master arriving at the divine wilderness great world and the master of the Void Sword Pavilion when they always been the sacred halls to complete his cultivation, they came across how many experts of the immortal civilization. I'm sorry to offend you. He could not have done the land unity of space between, but there would be 1,000 years. He could only use the teleportation down and entered by the immortal civilization who had teleported back to the Jade gathered at the Jade Dragon sky. However, on the one hand here, Sing Hui believed that the people of the Void Sword Guardian teleportation formation in the Jade Dragon soaring on the other guy was his confidence as the creature of chaos also gave him confidence even though it came before the Dragon slaying sword master had teleportation if the Heavenly Lord they still did not feel that people of the Void Sword Pavilion did not teleportation formation led directly to the hinterland of the immortal Emperor Long was didn't know that the Lord of myriad treasure ship of the heaven in the Jade Dragon soaring victorious heaven has just finished this year as the year of our celestial civilization's famous swordsmanship are mysterious to see him. I need to heavenly Lord he had already over relevant matters where the heavenly Lord of myriad treasures work. He had already changed his eyes and concentrated. stood on equal footing with the heavenly lord of myriad sword master was slightly startled. The fact that the heavenly lord of myriad treasures had just received a group of guests and was still resting, even if he still had guests, already closed his eyes, the heavenly lord of myriad treasures would temporarily set aside his matters to meet for a moment. Several sword master level powerhouses could not help into the hall and saw the lord of myriad treasures and was doing now was not creating a swordsmanship, but when the lord of myriad treasures saw the energy and mental effort required during this period was still unimaginable to ordinary people, especially the existence of the 4 most powerful swordsmanships of the Void Sword properly for defeating countless years for us, and solving a huge problem for our immortal civilization. 4 most powerful swordsmanships nodded slightly. During this period, I was born in my original world after all. Endless energy even though I don't cultivate the cultivation system of the immortal civilization, I can still be regarded as half a member of the immortal civilization standard. Now that our civilization even in the eyes of everyone, I should naturally take action much higher than any of the sword masters of the Void Sword Pavilion. It would take at least millions of years to completely improve the evil god the heavenly lord of myriad treasures said no, considering the time Sing Hui took to improve the celestial slashing sword of heaven, there's no need for that. Thousands of years. It's my duty. For thousands of years, you should have received the message cultivating in seclusion here. The lord of myriad treasures had to keep an eye on before going straight to the main topic. Able to deal with the many affairs of the Void Sword Pavilion. The lord of myriad treasures for more than half a day, at immortal the several sword masters saw that immortal Emperor Long have really immediately understood and led everyone else out of the hall and silently left the hall and closing the door. Slaughter sword master said, "I think activated the formation in the hall that blocked clearly just now. How about the formations of the immortal dragon civilization were several times more powerful than the formations of the primal chaos master's lineage, and we don't have to worry about formation which was used to block divine will's cultivation would prevent the grand development gates gate master and elders from peeking inside small affairs of the Void Sword Pavilion. Only after all the formations had been activated did the heavenly decision-making level treasures get down to business carefully. If the 4 of us guard here, I'm afraid the jade talisman with information before will stagnate. During this period of time, said, I've used the power and channels of the immortal civilization to investigate the blood-red statue and not be disturbed. In the end, I came across an extremely shocking piece of news by coincidence. Then the sword masters picked up the jade talisman and read through it with his consciousness. Suddenly came from the room. This news didn't originate from our civilization. You don't have to retreat outside. Void, you can come in. With unfathomable dangers. The several sword masters looked at each other and stepped into the hall one by one without thinking something happened in the chaos universe where the Lord of Chaos hurriedly suggested. Sword God 100,000 years ago, if you want to improve the evil god abandoned his colossal body it's better to go to the cultivation room and condensed all of his essence into a single body to charge into the Lord of Chaos. There's no need to go to the cultivation room anymore. Sing Hui was shocked. Sing Hui had a faint smile on his face. That's so bold. I've completed the improvement of one demon god sword technique, but an alliance of several. I just need to cultivate the Lord of Gods and the Lord of Time. As soon as these words came out, the direct result of the battle was that more than half of the 12 divine beasts were killed. And the remaining divine beasts was not greatly weakened, who was a great medium. The 12 divine beasts would probably have break through and become chaos beings by now. The Liha sword master suppressed the mocking thoughts in his heart and said as tactfully as possible that the evil god in the blood-colored statue on my body is the same as one of the 4 that killed the 12 divine beasts inside the main body of chaos. For countless years, the Lord of Chaos wanted to condense the power of the 12 divine beasts to recreate the body of the ancestral plate. But even if we spent tens of thousands of years by the Lord of Chaos and harbored resentment the power of the evil slaying sword at the critical moment, they broke into the body of the Master of Chaos. It's been less than a day since you obtained this sword technique. 12 divine beasts. I think it's better to go to the cultivation room and cultivate in seclusion to comprehend the true essence of the sword technique to replace the 12 divine beasts and become the eternal Liha sword master. And before they could kill and devour the 12 to the dragon-slaying sword master and said, had already reacted. You're the master of the evil slaying sword technique. The evil gods that invaded his body were either killed or has improved its power. Only 1 or 2 escaped into the depths of the chaos void, and he directly in the body of the master of chaos to the dragon-slaying sword in his territory. Although the dragon-slaying sword master, the Lord of myriad treasures, and felt that Sing Hui's actions were too childish. The reason why I'm guessing that not all evil gods have fled to the chaos and void is because the Lord of Chaos was furious over this matter. At the beginning, everyone in his domain to search for the evil god still had a hint of a completed mission domain. But as he slightly comprehended the mysteries in my hand might be the hidden he was immediately attracted by the many changes in it. Breathing quickened. Soon, he was completely immersed in it and could not extricate himself. The Lord of myriad treasures and the others were still waiting for the dragon-slaying Swordmaster to give his chaos verse to be invaded was mainly because he didn't believe that any demon god would dare to risk abandoning his own chaos verse and condense all of his master did not make a true body. Considering his identity as the Green Ruined Swordmaster, after all, a truly mature might have read through or carefully out of caution is almost equivalent to an immortal and the others did not rush him. As long as they remain cautious, after 3 whole days had passed. But once they leave their chaos verse and the others enter someone else's ran out of patience, they'll truly die if they're killed. It's just like how no one would believe that the king of an enemy country would willingly turn into an assassin to assassinate the king of his own country this 3 or 4 times. The true body of the demon-slaying Swordmaster suddenly woke up, immediately understood the significance of the crimson statue in his hand. We're asking you, is this information of yours true that Sing Hui gave you? It's just a guess. Exquisite beyond compare. Even I find this matter a little hard beyond compare. The Lord of the dragon-slaying Swordmaster came back to his senses. Sing Hui could not help but exclaim, "The Lord of myriad treasures that someone would be able to make such a huge improvement to the evil some guesses about the 2 pieces of fortune jade that had appeared in the divine wilderness great world." The evil pieces of fortune jade had come from the ancient god to a weakened version, who had fought with his back to the wall, at all, but had still been defeated. Swordmaster, the other piece originally belonged to the Lord of Chaos, and Sealing Sky, but because the demon god had invaded the Lord of Chaos, after a while, Chaos Universe, he had stolen it and hid in the divine wilderness great Swordmaster. You? It was because the Lord of Chaos had lost the pieces of fortune jade that the Lord of Chaos that could possibly affect the next step of our whereabouts of the demon god. The dragon-slaying Swordmaster's statue came from the divine wilderness great world after a while, and why the fortune jade came from the fortune mainland as if he was looking at a monster was even simpler. I never thought that there would be someone in this world who could might have arrived in the divine wilderness great world 100,000 years ago in a day, and at that time, but now I see the divine wilderness great world was still finally understand why God Sing Hui could become a great divine master in just 1,000 years, body, while we, then how did he avoid the 100,000 years detection we were still stuck in the divine wilderness holy body stage? This matter is not something I can know. Too big. However, you must be extremely careful. You must not be affected by this evil god. Swordmaster were quite familiar with the dragon-slaying even if it is heavily injured and on the verge of death. They immediately understood that what the dragon-slaying Swordmaster said from what we can understand and fight against. Sing Hui really used the Lord of Myriad treasures to improve the evil slightly at this point to such an extent. I can even give you a suggestion. Moreover, the effect of the demon god must be very shocking. If this demon god, the dragon-slaying Swordmaster would not be so shocked once you give it to the Lord of Chaos. The Swordmasters looked at each other and no longer rejected or dissatisfied. Instead, they stepped forward with a humble face. Offer it to the Master of Chaos. I'll pass on the demon-slaying sword technique. Even though the Master of Chaos is our enemy, please correct it. And the enemy of an enemy is a friend. We should help the evil god's true body. Sky sword technique. The benefits of helping the evil god's true body are far too lacking compared to the benefits of offering it to the Master of Chaos. All the cultivators of our evil god's true body over to the Master of Chaos to assist you. Even your identity as a chaos life form can be forgiven. You may even become a true chaos life form with the Master of Chaos's support and evolve into a chaotic universe. The Heavenly Lord of Plentiful Treasures did not continue. If Sing Hui could evolve into a chaotic universe as a chaos life form, then the immortal Dao civilization would have the foundation to establish itself. At the very least, the continuation of their inheritance would no longer be a problem. However, this is only the most ideal outcome. There is another possibility that the Master of Chaos will discover my identity as a chaos life form and directly kill me along with the evil god's true body. Sing Hui said. The Heavenly Lord of Plentiful Treasures fell silent. Although this possibility was very low, it was not completely impossible. Let me think, I need to think carefully. Sing Hui was somewhat confused by the news before him. You should think about it carefully. The Heavenly Lord of Plentiful Treasures cautiously said, however, that blood-red statue is very likely the evil god's true body. You should deal with it as soon as possible. It is too dangerous. An evil god, even the weakest one, is far beyond our imagination. Even if it only has a 10,000th of its strength left, It will not be difficult to kill cultivators at our level. I understand. I will make a decision as soon as possible. Xinghui said. In fact, the Heavenly Lord of Plentiful Treasure's suggestion of handing the evil god to the Master of Chaos was indeed the best way for others, but not for Xinghui. Xinghui had already guessed that the Fortune Jade on the Fortune mainland was most likely taken from the hands of the Master of Chaos by this evil god. Under such circumstances, if he offered the evil god to the Master of Chaos, the Master of Chaos would inevitably interrogate him about the whereabouts of the Fortune Jade. Once the Master of Chaos found out that the Fortune Jade was in the Divine Wilderness Great World but could not find it, he would inevitably suspect the most outstanding genius of the Divine Wilderness Great World in recent years, him. There was no need to guess what happened next. The evil god's true body. But since this evil god's true body has been peaceful for tens of thousands of years, it shouldn't cause any problems in the short term. I should still have time to think of a solution. Xinghui pondered. Even so, the fact that he was carrying the true body of an evil god still made his hair stand on end. It was like a mortal transporting a nuclear bomb, and an unstable one at that. Even if he used his professional knowledge to speculate that this unstable nuclear bomb would not explode in a short period of time, before he was 100% sure that the bomb would be stabilized, that kind of fear would still follow him, making it difficult for him to calm down. Who? Xinghui let out a long sigh. Lord of Heaven, I need more information about this evil god and all the other evil gods. Please help me collect as much information as possible so that I can figure out the state of this evil god in my body. I understand. I'll do my best. Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded solemnly. Then, what do you plan to do with this evil god? My cultivation has reached a critical moment. I plan to enter seclusion for a period of time and complete this cultivation. After all, no matter what the situation is, it's always good to increase my strength. That's right. Only by becoming stronger can you be at ease when you encounter true danger. Lord of Myriad Treasures said with a regretful expression. It's a pity that we can't help you now. Lord of Heaven, there's no need for that. You've already given me a lot of help. If not for you, how could I, Xinghui, reach such a level in such a short period of time? You're a chaos life form. As long as you understand your own essence, you can naturally grow rapidly by making a trip to the chaos void. Lord of Myriad Treasures shook his head. I won't delay any longer. I'll head to the Divine Wilderness Great World to cultivate in seclusion. All right. Xinghui bid farewell to Lord of Myriad Treasures and quickly left. He returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World through the teleportation array. The reason why he didn't stay in the Immortal Dao civilization was mainly because the Immortal Dao civilization didn't have a fixed residence. In addition, he had the evil god's true body, a ticking time bomb. If it exploded, the Immortal Dao civilization, which only had a trace of vitality left, would definitely be blown to smithereens. At that time, he would be the Immortal Dao civilization's greatest sinner. Lord of Myriad Treasures clearly considered this point, so he didn't say anything to persuade him to stay. The evil god's true body. This joke isn't ordinary. Standing on the teleportation array, Xinghui's face was filled with a bitter smile. Now, he had truly stepped into the forest of experts at the top of the world. As long as he didn't offend those few ultimate experts, he could do whatever he wanted in the Master of Chaos territory. Even if he couldn't defeat those top experts, it wouldn't be difficult for him to escape unscathed. But even if his cultivation made another breakthrough and became an ultimate expert, it was still nothing in front of a true evil god. These two realms, the difference was too great. It was so great that if the other party really wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as moving a finger. But now, the only advantage was that this evil god had clearly been severely injured. It shouldn't cause too much trouble in a short period of time. Thinking of this, Xinghui shook his head. His figure flashed, and he appeared outside the Hunyuan Sword Sect. Outside the Hunyuan Sword Sect, Xinghui didn't enter. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Master Firmament. Master, I will be in seclusion outside the Divine Wilderness Great World for 1,000 years. If anything big happens, You can send someone to find me outside the divine wilderness great world. Of course, if it's a small matter, you can deal with it yourselves. Master Firmament, who was handling matters, was slightly startled. He hurriedly responded, "Yes, Grand Elder, don't worry. I will take care of the Hunyuan sword sex matters properly. I won't cause you any trouble." After responding, Xing Hui didn't reply. He directly leaped up and disappeared into the horizon. After knowing that Xing Hui was guarding the periphery of the divine wilderness great world, although he wouldn't interfere in the divine wilderness great world in any way, Master Firmament seemed to have found his backbone. His entire body was filled with endless power. For a moment, his fighting spirit was high. This was because he knew that as long as Xing Hui was still alive, no matter what danger they encountered, there would always be someone to support the vast sky for them. Xing Hui left the Hunyuan sword sect and went directly to the periphery of the divine wilderness great world. Considering that his breakthrough might cause quite a bit of commotion, he still went a little further away from the divine wilderness great world. Then, he found a place where the spatial storm was relatively stable. In fact, for cultivators who had reached his level of cultivation, the so-called spatial storm could no longer affect him. It was like a level 3 or 4 wind. It had a great impact on some mosquitoes and flies, but to humans, it was not worth mentioning. I have to hurry. It doesn't feel good to have a ticking time bomb on me. Qing Su murmured to himself before immersing himself in cultivation very soon. As the power accumulated in the Fortune Divine Jade continued to be consumed, the great Tao nomological principles represented by the remaining 3 sword techniques began to gradually appear and even become clearer. The appearance of the great Tao naturally brought about the perfection of the 4 supreme sword techniques. When he saw the true appearance of the 4 sword techniques again and saw the connection between them, he vaguely recognized the 4 sword techniques and even the predecessor of the 4 great Tao nomological principles. 4 immortal slaying swords, immortal slaying sword formation. These 4 great Tao were the 4 great Tao nomological principles of immortal slaying, and immortal trapping. They specialized in destruction and slaughter. Back then, these 4 great Tao and the sword formation they represented could be said to be famous in the immortal Tao civilization. Among them, demon ancestor Rahu had used these 4 great Tao to defeat Tao ancestor Hongjun. If it weren't for the help of a series of chaotic beings, the ruler of the immortal Tao civilization would not have been the immortal Tao, but the demonic Tao. The might of these 4 great Tao was thus evident. Now that Qing Su had used the Fortune Jade to complete them one by one before refining them into his own heavenly way, the power of the heavenly way he had simulated immediately skyrocketed. I've finally completed all 49 great Tao. 800 years later, Xing Hui breathed a sigh of relief when he sensed the 49 great Tao revolving around the great Tao of unity. He was more than halfway done with the second level of the great Tao disc. Next, using the great Tao of unity and the 49 great Tao as a foundation, and using the Fortune Divine Jade as the foundation, he would simulate a chaotic universe and the world of the immortal Tao civilization. Taiji, one body of chaos, is the one of the heavens. It gives birth to the number 2 of the yin and yang, which gives birth to the number 2 of the earth. Taiji gives birth to the number 1 of the earth, which gives birth to the number 3 of the heavens. The laws of Tao in Xing Hui's mind constantly changed. During this process, the jade-shaped Fortune Divine Jade transformed into a nebula. The nebula changed and spun rapidly. Under the influence of the great Tao of unity, pure energy rose and turbid energy sank. It gave birth to the numbers of heaven and earth, which gave birth to the numbers of Tao, earth, and heaven. The 3 numbers changed, giving birth to earth, water, fire, and wind, which gave birth to the numbers of 4. The 5 elements changed as well, giving birth to the numbers of 5. As the changes continued, a world was gradually born, giving birth to the concept of heaven and earth, the 5 elements, and earth, water, fire, and wind. After 1,000 years of evolution, a bleak, ancient, and desolate world finally emerged. Although this world was clearly modeled using the Fortune Divine Jade as the foundation, everything within it felt so real. Apart from the lack of life and the harsh environment that had just formed, There was almost no difference between this world and the real world. My world has finally been formed. Xing Hui felt an indescribable sense of pride as he sensed the virtual world in his mind. Genesis. This was a world that was completely his own. This kind of creation was different from the small worlds of cultivators who could create worlds with a thought. The small worlds of cultivators who could create worlds with a thought were nothing more than a spatial framework. Everything within had to be moved in from the outside world, including the mountains and rivers. They couldn't automatically form these strange phenomena inside, and if a cultivator died one day, the world would quickly collapse. However, everything in the world of green ruins was perfect. Even if cultivators died, the world could continue to reproduce and develop, to the point where new life forms and races would be born one day. This was Xing Hui's world. His only regret now was that this world wasn't real. It was still a simulation. Chapter 909. The second level of the Great Tao Disc is complete. This level doesn't have a significant effect on my cultivation. At most, it can push my combat strength from the level of a powerhouse to the level of a top-notch one. In terms of patterns, it should be 4 patterns and not more than 5. However, its main function is to lay a good foundation. Xing Hui's gaze fell on the deep scarlet sword. Back then, Xing Hui had transferred the cultivation systems of the torch dragon and the golden crow to the deep scarlet sword. Although the deep scarlet sword had long separated from these two cultivation systems, it had laid a solid foundation. He could cultivate these two laws without the need for great Tao nomological fragments and then integrate them into the heavenly Tao that he had created with the great Tao of unity as the foundation. Time is tight. I'll cultivate these 2 great Tao nomological laws to the sovereign level, then obtain the great Tao origin to cultivate to the origin sacred body level, and finally reach the level of transforming my body into Tao. Xing Hui quickly arranged the following cultivation journey. However, he stopped after a while. Wait a minute. Many of the 12 disciples I've taught have completed their cultivation. In addition, I've cultivated the great Tao nomological laws represented by the golden crow and the torch dragon in order to integrate them into the heavenly Tao that I formed with the great Tao of unity. Why don't I use my great Tao nomological laws as the origin to cultivate now? When the time comes, I just need to complete the corresponding great Tao nomological laws. Xing Hui immediately broke away from the conventional cultivation method and began to cultivate the great Tao nomological laws represented by the golden crow and the torch dragon. Due to his extremely high realm, it took him less than 30 years to cultivate these 2 great Tao nomological laws to the peak of the sovereign level. Then, with the infusion of the great Tao of unity's origin power, he easily broke through to the origin's sacred body level. Then, he settled at this level for 300 years and completed the cultivation of transforming his body into Tao. Finally, he used another 600 years to integrate the 2 great Tao nomological laws into the great Tao of unity. All in all, this seclusion took him more than 2,800 years. Now, I can truly be said to be equivalent to the 2-pattern realm. The power of the great Tao nomological laws flowed in Xing Hui's hands. One of his hands represented the power of the golden crow, while the other represented the torch dragon. However, because he already possessed battle prowess at the 4-vein level with the 2nd level of the Tao disc, the newly added golden crow and torch dragon laws didn't have much of an obvious increase in his strength. At most, it only allowed him to reach the peak of 4-vein level. Among the peak almighties, he was just barely out of the bottom. Next, I can only rely on the great Tao nomological laws of unity. Qing Su sighed emotionally and stopped his seclusion that had lasted for 2,800 years. Grand Tao fragments are extremely precious. I wonder if they can be traded in the Great Development Gate. Xing Hui's thought. However, after a moment, he drove this thought to the back of his mind. This is related to the supreme treasure that can be added to the great Tao nomological laws of the 12 divine beasts. Even if the great Tao nomological laws of the 12 divine beasts are circulated in the great Tao nomological laws of unity, I probably can't afford it with my current wealth. I can only ask Lord Qingshui to see if I can obtain nomological laws of the great Tao nomological laws from other sources. Thinking of this, Xing Hui no longer continued the useless cultivation. His figure flashed and he flew toward the divine wilderness great world. In the past 3,000 years, the divine wilderness great world had developed to an even more prosperous state. Not only had powerhouses at the world creation realm sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain, there were now 23 of them. Even a second primal chaos sovereign had appeared after Bai Shuang. It was the former #1 expert of the firmament realm, ranked third on the list of the strongest in the divine wilderness great world, esteemed Zhu Zhao. With the originator, it was much easier for him to break through to the chaotic realm than ordinary people. In addition, with Xing Hui's unstinting support and the careful guidance from Sword Master Qing Kong of the Void Sword Pavilion from time to time, he finally stepped into the first level of the chaotic realm 100 years ago and became the #1 expert in the Hunyuan sword sect. If the divine wilderness great world's production of Dao nomological items is similar to that of the true central great world, the Yujing Great World and the Kunlong Great World with the current power of the Hunyuan sword sect, even without me and Bai Shuang who joined the Void Sword Pavilion, it is still qualified to occupy this world. Xing Hui looked at the sky above the divine wilderness great world and withdrew his gaze. Instead of going down, he walked directly toward the transmission formation. The Hunyuan sword sect was now gradually growing and did not need him to look after it all the time. Whoosh! Xing Hui's figure flashed and came to the Eternal Station. Through the transmission formation in the original Eternal Station, he appeared in the True Sun Great World. Lord of Dao Qingshui was now in the True Sun Great World and was living a rather leisurely life. When Xing Hui found him, he was guiding the cultivation of a few juniors. At the same time, there were 2 dominators who had cultivated the Hunyuan sacred body serving him on both sides. Lord of Dao Qingshui. Xing Hui's voice came from the void. Hearing Xing Hui's voice, Lord of Dao Qingshui was slightly startled and then looked at him awkwardly. I have finished setting up the restriction you asked me to set up outside the True Sun Great World. Since I have nothing to do, I summoned the juniors in my family to guide their cultivation. After saying that, he waved his hand. Come and greet Sword God Xing Hui. Sword God Xing Hui is younger than me and a true genius who has joined the Great Development Gate. There were no weaklings in the Great Development Gate. Anyone who could be called a member of the Great Development Gate and was qualified to use the Great Development Gate's title was equivalent to a veteran great medium. In the face of such a great figure, the juniors who were being guided by Lord of Dao Qingshui and the 2 dominators who had cultivated the Hunyuan sacred body did not dare to be negligent. They hurried forward and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Sword God Xing Hui. Xing Hui waved his hand and said, No need to be so polite. Then, he turned to Lord of Dao Qingshui. I have something to ask you. Lord of Dao Qingshui waved his hand, and the 2 dominators immediately took the juniors and left. Then, he said, Do you need a change of environment? It's not a secret. I just want to ask you where I can get the great Dao nomological fragments of the 12 divine beasts. The great Dao nomological fragments of the 12 divine beasts? Have you fused the 2 great Dao nomological fragments? Lord of Dao Qingshui asked curiously. Xing Hui shook his head. I just want to know in advance so that I can be prepared. Seeing how Qing Su was unwilling to talk about it, Water Lord Qingshui felt that it was inappropriate to ask too much. She nodded and organized her thoughts slightly before saying, There are a total of 4 ways to obtain the laws of ways of the 12 divine beasts. There are 4 ways? Xing Hui's eyes lit up. Lord of Dao Qingshui smiled bitterly and said, Listen to me first. Of these 4 methods, the simplest one is naturally to search around. If you can find some scattered fragments of the 12 divine beasts law by chance, you can naturally refine these dharmas and quickly obtain a kind of great way power. However, this method requires too much luck. Xing Hui nodded. He knew this method long ago. For example, Lord of Dao Qingshui and many people in the Great Development Gate, they had obtained the great Dao nomological fragments of the 12 divine beasts through this method. Thus, they possessed combat strength that surpassed ordinary great medium. The second way is to buy it. Buy it? Someone is willing to sell it? Of course, no one is willing. However, if the cultivator is facing a life and death crisis, or if his cultivation is at the critical point of a breakthrough, I think he won't mind using a great Tao nomological fragment to ask someone to help him. However, such a good thing is usually snatched away by the 5-vein level, 6-vein level, or even the most powerful divine powers. They have extremely rich resources in their hands, and the price they can offer is much higher than we can imagine. Unless we happen to have something that person urgently needs, it's almost impossible to compete with them. Sing Hui's face darkened. With his current resources, how could he compete with a powerful person in terms of wealth? He did not even want to think about it. Then there's the third method. The great Tao law manifested by us human great divine masters isn't pure and can't be considered one of the 12 divine beasts' great Tao laws. However, divine beasts are different. If you can cultivate a divine beast to the level of a great divine master, then kill and refine it, you'll naturally be able to obtain its corresponding great Tao law fragment. Cultivate a divine beast to the level of a great medium, then kill and refine it. Sing Hui shook his head. This method was also not advisable. The combat power of a divine beast was 10 times that of a human. In other words, a divine beast, even the weakest one, was equivalent to a top great medium. Not to mention that Sing Hui did not have enough resources to cultivate a divine beast. Even if he did, it was still unknown whether he would kill the divine beast or be swallowed by the divine beast in the end. It was useless even if he had signed a contract early. This was because when a divine beast cultivated to the level of great Tao, it was equivalent to a kind of law and would not be bound by a contract at all. Then there's the fourth way. It's the most dangerous but also the one with the most benefits. Speaking of this, Tao Lord Qingshui paused slightly and said with a solemn face, that is, to kill the ancestors of the 12 divine beasts. Kill the ancestors of the 12 divine beasts? Sing Hui was stunned. The ancestors of the 12 divine beasts were terrifying creatures between great medium and evil gods. Even the most powerful people could barely survive in front of any of the ancestors of the divine beasts, let alone them. In terms of combat power, one ancestor of the divine beasts was probably equivalent to hundreds or thousands of ordinary great medium. Tao Lord Qingshui seemed to understand Sing Hui's idea and said with a smile, "Of course, it's impossible to kill the ancestors of the 12 divine beasts. However, what about injuring the ancestors of the divine beasts and snatching a part of the law fragments from them? Since the establishment of the Great Development Sect, we've organized 4 campaigns to kill the ancestors of the divine beasts. We've succeeded 3 times and obtained more than 100 great Tao law fragments in all 3 campaigns." Sing Hui could not help but shake his head. "I'm afraid the number of fallen great medium is not small." Yes, in the 4 campaigns, the number of fallen great medium is 92. In the one that failed, 2 of the most powerful people died. Tao Lord Qingshui paused slightly. This is the most dangerous but also the most beneficial method. Moreover, according to the information I've received, about 1,300 years later, the Great Development Sect will organize the 5th campaign to kill the ancestors of the divine beasts. The target is the Qilin, the ancestor of the divine beasts with a lower combat power. Chapter 9-10. Qilin. An auspicious beast. Compared to the divine beasts such as the golden crow, the kuanping and the tong tian, it was indeed inferior, but as the ancestor of the 12 divine beasts, even if the ancestor Qilin was not good at fighting, its combat strength was not something that ordinary great divines could fight against. In such a large-scale encirclement battle, perhaps even the supreme experts could barely keep their lives. Whether they could tear a great Tao law from the ancestor Qilin would be a problem. As for the great divines below the supreme experts, that was the real fate of life and death. Because this time we are dealing with the divine beast ancestor Qilin, everyone knows that its combat strength is not strong. There are many participants, not only the sect master and the 5 elders, but also more than half of the deacons and disciples. The success rate of encirclement is very high. Speaking of this, Lord of Tao Qingshui paused for a moment. In fact, if there was no agreement with sword god Sing Hui, I would also want to try my luck. You are going too? Xing Hui's gaze fell on Lord of Dao Qingshui, looking a little surprised. That is the ancestor Qilin, not to mention us great divines below the 3-striped level. Even great divines from the 4-striped to 6-striped level would not be able to withstand a few blows in front of such a terrifying existence, right? The ancestor Qilin's real target is most likely the sect master and the elders. As long as we are careful, we may not be in danger. Besides, I will not rush to the front line directly. The main purpose of going is to try my luck. If I am lucky, I hope to get a great Dao Law fragment. If I am unlucky, I will not force it and will just take it as some experience to kill the ancestor of the divine beasts. Lord of Dao Qingshui looked very calm. Xing Hui shook his head. Although he now had the combat strength not inferior to the 4-stripe level, and even close to the 5-stripe level, he still did not want to take the risk before he had enough confidence to save his life. It's too dangerous for a 1-vein to 3-vein level cultivator to get involved in such an important matter. It's the exact opposite. The ones who suffer the heaviest losses are the 4 to 6-vein cultivators. This is because 1-vein and 3-vein cultivators are extremely clear about their position. They definitely won't act rashly before they have enough confidence. As a result, the number of experts who die is lower. Just like last time, only 7 of the 18 people who died were 1-vein to 3-vein, while 11 were 4-vein to 6-vein. I don't intend to get involved in this encirclement operation. Xing Hui shook his head. Then if we want to obtain Grand Dao Law's fragments, we can only rely on our own fortune, nurture divine beasts, and trade with others. Moreover, trading with others usually requires bartering, and in terms of the abundance of resources, we're far from being able to compare with those deacons and elders. Xing Hui did not say anything else. He needed to think about it carefully and understand it. I'm going to the Grand Development Gate, Xing Hui said, and returned to the True Sun Great World. He then went through the True Sun Great World to the Vast Great World, and then entered the Grand Development Gate from the Vast Great World. When he arrived at the Grand Development Gate, Xing Hui did not waste any time and went straight to the library of the Grand Development Gate. In fact, the Grand Development Gate was an extremely loose organization. Although there were many missions in the gate, none of these missions were compulsory. It was fine to ignore these missions, and cultivators who completed these missions could also obtain a considerable amount of contribution points. On one hand, contribution points could be used to look up precious information. On the other hand, if one encountered any danger, one could also issue a reward to ask others for help. For example, when Xing Hui was flipping through the books in the library, because he did not have contribution points, he could only look up some basic information. The 4 operations were respectively 44,000 years ago, 28,000 years ago, 16,000 years ago, and 6,000 years ago. In the operation 28,000 years ago, because the target was the Torch Dragon, the Great Development Gate dispatched 63 people. In the end, a total of 46 people were killed by the Torch Dragon, including 2 of their strongest experts. The remaining people, without exception, were all heavily injured. Even the Great Development Gate's Gate Master and several elders who led the team were no exception. It could be said to be an unprecedentedly tragic loss. Xing Hui's gaze swept through the information one by one. In the 4 operations, there were an average of 15 to 16 people who died. Among them, 40% were from 1-vein to 3-vein, and 60% were from 4-vein to 6-vein. Every time they succeeded, they would often obtain 30 to 40 fragments of the Grand Dao Laws. Compared to the previous operations, there were still 1,300 years before the operation began, but the number of people who had decided to participate had already reached 69. When the time was up, the number of people who had signed up was estimated to reach more than 80. Compared to the previous operations, the scale was much larger. In addition, the threat of the divine beast Qilin was far from being comparable to the divine beast Torch Dragon. Whether it was the success rate or the safety of this operation, it was all higher than the previous operations. Perhaps I should think of other ways. It's difficult for my cultivation to increase in a short period of time, but if I can obtain a divine weapon of creation and let the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit devour and refine it, it can immediately grow to the level of a divine weapon of creation. In addition, the Scarlet Abyss Sword itself is derived from my Grand Tao, almost equivalent to my personal divine weapon. The strength of a 4-vein or close to 5-vein, coupled with an exclusive divine weapon of creation. This is equivalent to the model of a supreme expert. In this way, in the battle to encircle and annihilate the ancestral Qilin, whether it is the harvest or the protection of my own safety, it will all be greatly increased. Xing Hui's eyes flashed. If this operation was successful, not only would he be able to advance to the 3-vein level, if he had enough fragments of the Grand Tao laws, he could use them to exchange with others for other fragments of the Grand Tao laws. At that time, it would not be difficult for him to advance to 5-vein, 6-vein, or even 7-vein, which was equivalent to a true supreme expert. A divine weapon of creation. Xing Hui pondered. The best way to obtain a divine weapon of creation was to kill a godly venerable god or 10 superior gods. With his current level of cultivation, he might be able to fight evenly with an expert like God Brilliant, but if he were to say that he could kill him, it was beyond his power. As for higher gods usually had their own divine system or were in a divine system, and a divine system with a higher god had at least a supreme god behind it. Killing any one of them would bring a lot of trouble, let alone killing 10 of them in a row. If Qing Su really managed to kill the 10 higher gods within 1,000 years or so, he could guarantee that even the supreme deities under the Master of God's lineage would be alarmed. By then, they would definitely lead the entire god pantheon to hunt him down personally. Let's see if there are any suitable missions. After a moment of headache, Xing Hui's gaze could not help but fall on the mission help column of the Great Development Gate. Even though there were not many official members of the Great Development Hall, there were still around 500 or 600 requests for help in the request column. Qing Su glanced through them one by one, and very soon, his gaze landed on the missions with the highest rewards. One of the missions even offered a fragment of the Grand Tao laws torn from the divine beast Yujia. The mission was issued by a 5-mark deacon with a shocking request. The mission was to help him kill the Dark Knight deity of the Master of Gods. The Dark Knight deity was a supreme ultimate god on the same level as the glorious Sun deity. Not to mention how much power was needed to kill a supreme ultimate god, just the fact that the death of a supreme ultimate god would attract the attention of the Master of Gods was enough to make even the sect master and elder level existences in the Great Development Gate stop in their tracks. Xing Hui's gaze continued to look down, and soon, a message caught his attention. Help him kill the supreme god of the giant beast and all the rewards will go to the helper? And an extra 30,000 contribution points? Xing Hui's gaze fell on the mission issuer. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword. A 4-mark deacon. 4-vein cultivation level was already equivalent to a relatively weak ultimate god. However, it was completely wishful thinking to kill an ultimate god with such strength. It was no wonder that he had spread the news and sought the help of other great divines. The astral beast sovereign seems to be even more powerful than the glorious divinity. He has 3 high gods under him. I'll go take a look first. Regardless of whether or not I'm able to kill the astral beast sovereign, just being able to kill 1 or 2 of those 3 high gods is enough to bring me 1 step closer to the 10 high gods. As he thought, Xing Hui had already contacted the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord through the message left behind by him. Not long after, an incarnation was projected and arrived at Xing Hui's appointed location. It was the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord. The Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord was rather happy when he arrived. However, when he saw that Xing Hui's clothes were only a 1-mark deacon, he could not help but reveal a hint of disappointment. Fellow Taoist, have you seen clearly the requirements of my mission? I want to kill a supreme god, and a supreme god has the ability to kill a 1-mark, 2-mark, or even 3-mark cultivator. You, Xing Hui smiled, although I'm only a 1-mark deacon and have only mastered 2 Great Tao laws, my understanding of the Great Tao laws is extremely profound. Any Great Tao law is probably not inferior to a 2-mark or 3-mark deacon. Therefore, even if my combat strength is not as good as a 5-mark deacon, it won't be much weaker than a 5-mark deacon. When Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword heard this, a smile appeared on his face. I was too rash. The number of great Taoists does not represent everything. There are still Tao protectors among the great divinities. However, it is too dangerous to surround and kill a supreme god. For safety's sake, I still want to see your strength with my own eyes. Please forgive me. I can understand. Does the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord have any good venues? I can accept the verification of the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord at any time. There is a place that is convenient for you to use your full strength. Sorry for the intrusion. As the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord spoke, he brought Xing Hui out of the great Yen sky and arrived at the chaotic void. When they arrived at the chaotic void, Xing Hui did not restrain his aura. He directly used the two great Tao laws of the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon that had fused with the unification Great Tao. For a moment, raging flames burned the sky, and a blazing torrent swept in all directions. The Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord's eyes were filled with surprise. Good. Fellow Taoists' understanding of the great Tao laws is indeed extraordinary. I'll rely on you for this operation. Chapter 9:11. After personally verifying Xing Hui's cultivation base, Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword's attitude towards Xing Hui had undergone a huge change. It could be said that he was incomparably enthusiastic. With fellow Xing Hui's help, my chances of success this time have increased to 80%. As Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword spoke, he had already passed all the relevant information about the Divine Beast Sovereign to Xing Hui. Xing Hui listened to Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword's flattery while flipping through the information about the Divine Beast Sovereign. He did not dare to relax in the slightest when facing a Divine Venerable whose combat strength might be slightly higher than his. After a long while, Xing Hui finished reading all the information. For a moment, his gaze fell on Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword. Heavenly Venerable, I've read the information. It says that you've placed a chess piece beside the Divine Beast Sovereign? And it's a medium god-level chess piece? It has quite a bit of influence on the Divine Beast Sovereign? That's right. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword nodded with a hateful expression. The Divine Beast Sovereign destroyed my inheritance, and the hatred between us is irreconcilable. As early as 60,000 years ago, I've been plotting to deal with him, but because my cultivation base is limited and I haven't been able to take out enough contribution points to invite top experts to help, I've been unable to do anything to him. That's why he's been free and unfettered to this day. Then, Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword, can we set the battlefield in the chaotic void? Xing Hui had a vague plan in his heart. Set the battlefield in the chaotic void? Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword was slightly stunned. The chaotic void is not a good place. Once we exhaust too much of our power of laws there, I'm afraid we'll be eroded by the chaotic aura. If the Divine Beast Sovereign chooses to continuously exhaust our power when he realizes that he's in danger, even if we can kill him in the end, we'll have to give up there. I'm afraid that the gains won't make up for the losses. Don't worry, I have a fortune artifact. This fortune artifact has no other use, but it can allow me to safely survive in the primal chaos void. If we set up the battlefield in the primal chaos void, the advantage of my fortune artifact will be maximized. At that time, the success rate of killing Supreme God Astral Beast will be greatly increased. There's actually such a creation artifact? Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword was overjoyed. That's right. The key now is whether you can find a way to lure him into the primal chaos void. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword gritted his teeth and agreed. I'll think of a way. Then I'll wait for your good news. Xing Hui said. If Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword could really lure the Supreme God Astral Beast into the primal chaos void, the original 80% chance of winning this battle would directly rise to 100%. The probability of smoothly killing the Supreme God Astral Beast would also increase to more than 60%. After all, the Divine Beast God is the master of a god system. He's one of the top existences among the great masters. For safety's sake, let's summon Lord of Water Dao Qing as well. Even if she can't defeat the Divine Beast God, as long as she can slightly cut off the Divine Beast God system and share the pressure of a superior god, it'll still be a lot easier for us. Xing Hui thought and sent a message to Water Lord Qingshui. In order to kill the almighty beast divinity, he had spared no effort this time. An ultimate god. That was a fortune divine artifact. Time passed, and soon 30 years had passed. During these 30 years, Xing Hui constantly studied the 4 supreme swordsmanship obtained from the Void Sword Pavilion. At the same time, he fused the power of laws of the 2 divine beasts, the Torch Dragon and the Golden Crow, into the swordsmanship. The 2 divine beasts' laws were respectively fused into the 2 great swordsmanships, the Immortal Slaying Sword and the Immortal Slaying Sword, which greatly increased the power of the Great Path principle. However, it destroyed the balance of the sword formation formed by the 4 swords. Considering that Xing Hui could only use the power of the Great Path of the divine beasts when he acted with Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword and the others, he finally chose to give up the sword formation formed by the 4 great swordsmanships. Just as Xing Hui was about to devote his mind to the study of other Great Path principles, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, who had been away for 30 years, found Xing Hui and said excitedly, "Sword God Xing Hui has taken the bait. The divine beast god has taken the bait. I paid a huge price to give that pawn a great opportunity and gave him an opportunity to become a superior god. He lived up to my expectations and successfully advanced. Then he stole a treasure of the divine beast god and lured him out. Now, the divine beast god is chasing that pawn into the chaotic void. Let's go," Xing Hui said without hesitation. At that moment, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, Xing Hui, Tao Lord Clearwater, and another great medium, Realm Lord Black Mirror, set out at the same time and headed straight for the chaotic void. The Black Mirror Realm Lord owed the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord a huge favor back then. Now, he was willing to lend the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord a helping hand. However, like the Clearwater Tao Lord, he was the kind of assistant who would take advantage of the situation. When it came to a life-and-death battle, the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord would have to rely on himself. The 4 of them were extremely fast. In less than 20 years, they had already caught up to the chaotic void. My chess piece has already been killed by the Divine Beast Sovereign. However, the Divine Beast Sovereign is now a long distance away from the primal chaos void. As long as we can tie him down and exhaust his strength, we will definitely be able to trap him in the primal chaos void. After chasing for a period of time in the chaotic void, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword also received new news. Even for the Dragon Sword Celestial Sovereign, allowing a mid-level god to break through to the high-level god level was a combination of resources, opportunities, and luck. However, such a reliable subordinate had fallen in the hands of the giant beast Divine Sovereign. Just thinking about it made the Dragon Sword Celestial Sovereign's heart ache. However, it was obviously not the time to feel sorry for the loss. The 4 of them continued their pursuit. Finally, 3 years later, a huge god system that was returning at full speed suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Divine Beast God. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword sensed the aura emanating from the huge god system, and a piercing cold light shot out from his eyes. It's not easy to hide in the chaotic void. We can only attack head-on. Moreover, the Divine Beast God is very careful when he moves forward. The power of the gods in his god kingdom and god system has never been separated. I'm afraid it's impossible to use sneak attacks to tear apart his god system. Tao Lord Clearwater, Realm Lord Black Mirror, the 2 of you just do your best to entangle the 2 higher gods. I'll go and exhaust the Divine Beast God's power head-on. As for the other higher god and the Divine Beast God system, it's all up to you, Sword God Xing Hui. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword said fiercely. Leave it to me. Xing Hui nodded. The Divine Beast God in front of them was different from the Divine Beast God. The Divine Beast God's power was connected to his god system, and he had an endless supply of god system's power. As long as they did not destroy the Divine Beast God system, even if the Divine Beast God kingdom was destroyed, he would be able to condense it again. In other words, as long as the Divine Beast God system was not destroyed, his god kingdom would never fall. Kill! With a roar, the 4 higher gods burst forth with their fastest speed and charged at the Divine Beast God. Sensing the enemy from afar, the Divine Beast God manifested a powerful god spirit body. Dragon's word, it's actually you? It seems that the traitor is also one of your people? You're really willing to give up on a higher god so easily. Just to lure me into this chaotic void, you want to use the chaotic void's environment to kill me? Dream on. For great divine masters? I'll kill one of them first. The almighty beast god, who had manifested his godly spirit body, let out a roar and immediately locked his gaze on the weakest realm lord Black Mirror. He threw out a punch, and there seemed to be tens of thousands of prehistoric beasts with a diameter of hundreds of millions of kilometers roaring in the void, forming a torrent that charged forward. This caused the realm lord Black Mirror's expression to change slightly, and his charging figure also faintly hesitated. I'll block his attack. At the sight of this, Ching Su said and directly went up to him. Heavenly Lord Dragon's Word saw this, and a trace of gratitude flashed in his eyes. Thank you, Sword God Xing Hui. As he spoke, Xing Hui had already met the divine beast god's 10,000 beast charge. As he pinched his fingers into a sword and slashed out with all his strength, streaks of blazing sword chi mixed with the flames of the golden crow and the torch dragon crisscrossed the chaos and met the group of charging prehistoric beasts. This special performance stunned Dao Lord Qingshui, who knew that Xing Hui was a Kuan Peng and a chaos divine beast great Dao. However, he was still wise enough not to speak carelessly. The beasts and the sword chi rapidly fought and collided in the chaotic void, forming a vast chaotic storm, causing the surrounding vitality to be in chaos. Again! After slashing out thousands of sword chi to block the charging beasts, Xing Hui did not stop at all. He attacked again. More sword lights mixed with the blazing true flames of the golden crow and the torch dragon swept out in a majestic manner, sweeping toward the divine beast god's huge god system. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Dragon's Word also arrived in front of the divine beast god's huge god system. There seemed to be a huge sword with a diameter of 10 billion kilometers in the void. There were countless true dragons circling and roaring on the huge sword. It swept out with supreme pressure and slashed toward the divine beast god system. The attacks from both directions could be said to be without holding back. Even the divine beast god's expression changed drastically when he saw this. He had no choice but to block with all his strength. For a time, violent explosions and a vast and majestic torrent of destruction spread continuously in the chaotic void. It impacted the surrounding chaotic vitality, causing the chaotic vitality to form circles of ripples that were less than a few 100 million kilometers in length. In the fierce battle, Black Mirror Realm Lord and Dao Lord Qingshui also joined the battle circle. They constantly attacked the divine beast god system, setting off a new wave of destructive storms. The divine beast god glanced at Dao Lord Qingshui and Black Mirror Realm Lord. These two great magics were better. Although they were constantly attacking the divine beast god system, they did not go all out. At least, they still had enough energy to retreat. However, Xing Hui in front of him, he was completely ignorant of the concept of consumption. In the chaotic void where the environment was extremely harsh and there was no way to replenish his power, he still attacked without restraint. He even fought with the divine beast god as if he was risking his life. If it were not for the fact that the divine beast god was very sure that he had not offended Xing Hui, he would have suspected that there was some irreconcilable enmity between him and Xing Hui. Damn it. I'd like to see how much power of laws you have. If you want to kill me, then be prepared to leave your lives behind. The divine beast god roared. With a ferocious look he pounced toward Xing Hui crazily. He actually looked like he wanted to perish together with Xing Hui. Unfortunately, the divine beast god's bravado of perishing together with Xing Hui did not seem to scare Xing Hui at all. He appeared to be crazy and ruthless, but Xing Hui did not back down. In the fierce battle, the great path nomological laws in their bodies were being consumed crazily. This made Heavenly Master Dragon's sword a little dumbfounded. He could not tell whether the divine beast god had a great enmity with Xing Hui or himself. Chapter 9:12. While Xing Hui and Hierarch Astral Beast were fighting, Heavenly Lord Dragon's sword took the opportunity to destroy Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system. He did not need to deliberately destroy the divine kingdoms in Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system. He only needed to use all his strength to separate the divine kingdoms of the intermediate and lower gods from Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system. Without the protection of Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system, the divine kingdoms of the intermediate and lower gods melted rapidly like snow thrown into magma. With the help of Taoist Lord Clearwater and Realm Lord Black Mirror, the divine kingdoms belonging to Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system continued to be destroyed. The scales of the war gradually tilted towards Tsing Hui, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, and the others. Madman, you're really a madman. I have a divine kingdom, and my energy replenishment is far above yours. You definitely don't have much energy left after fighting me head-on. When the time comes, whether you can leave the chaotic void alive will be a problem. I'd like to see how long you can last. All divine kingdoms, come closer to me. Hierarch Astral Beast saw that his suicidal attitude did not scare Tsing Hui at all. He immediately let out a long roar and withdrew the power of the divine kingdoms of many gods. Then he began to retreat into the depths of the void. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, Realm Lord Black Mirror, Taoist Lord Clearwater, and the others expressed their understanding. But Tsing Hui, they could not help but laugh. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, Realm Lord Black Mirror, Taoist Lord Clearwater, and Tsing Hui had the advantage in numbers. They were obviously at a disadvantage in a head-on battle. Hierarch Astral Beast planned to sacrifice the intermediate, lower, and true gods and use them as nourishment. He would use the special environment of the chaotic void to buy time for Tsing Hui and the others. The harsh environment of the chaotic void pressured Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword and the others. Hierarch Astral Beast only needed to protect himself. Under such circumstances, as long as he could hold on, he would naturally be able to wear down Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword and the others. This was Hierarch Astral Beast's intention. His plan was perfect. 20 years after Hierarch Astral Beast entered the chaotic void, Realm Lord Black Mirror was the first to stop. If he continued the chase, the remaining energy in his body would not be enough for him to resist the corrosion of the chaotic void and return to the domain of the Master of Gods or the Master of Chaos. He left first. At this time, the Divinity Astral Beast, which had lost 30% of its divine system power, lost another 10% of its divine system power. Time passed, and after another 3 years, Lord of Dao Qingshui could not take it anymore and had to turn back. After dragging Lord of Dao Qingshui away, the divine colossal beast lost another 10% of its power. And then, another 5 years passed. When Divinity Colossal Beast's divine system's power was reduced to less than 40%, even Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword couldn't hold on any longer. The Dragon Sword Heavenly Exalt was rather reluctant to give up when he saw the dim divine pantheon that had shrunk to 90% of its size, but he could only place all his hopes on Qing Su. Qing Su Sword God, I'll leave everything to you. This is my only hope of killing the divine beast. Don't worry, you have to expend a lot of energy to survive flying in the chaotic void to resist the corrosion of the chaotic void. But you don't have to worry at all. You can leave without worry. Tsing Hui smiled and nodded at Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword. He did not expect that Divinity Colossal Beast would choose to use the chaotic void to exhaust each other to determine the winner. It was simply too much to his liking. Tsing Hui continued to chase after Divinity Colossal Beast. After another 3 years, another 10% of Divinity Colossal Beast's divine system power was wiped out. After another 3 years, Divinity Colossal Beast's divine system power was weakened again. It was definitely less than 1/5 of its peak. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years had passed. Divinity Colossal Beast, with only 1/10 of its peak power, had obviously reached its limit. At this point, even Divinity Colossal Beast himself might not be able to return to the territory of the Master of Gods alive, let alone his pursuers. At this moment, Divinity Colossal Beast, whose divine country power was almost completely exhausted, finally stopped. He turned to Tsing Hui with a look of despair and gnashed his teeth. What kind of deep hatred do you have with me? Why are you still unwilling to let me go after chasing me to such a deep place in the chaotic void? Now that we are deep in the chaotic void, it will take at least 40 years to travel at full speed. Even if you are an ultimate expert, The remaining power in your body is not enough for you to return to the territory of the great Master of Gods or the Master of Chaos. Are you really willing to risk your own life to take me down with you? Die! Tsing Hui looked at Divinity Colossal Beast, who was less than 1/10 of its peak power, with a faint smile on his face. At the same time, the energy fluctuations on his body, which had been reduced to the extreme, gradually began to rise as he recovered towards his peak state. I think that you are thinking too much. If you continue to hold on, you won't be able to hold on, but I may not. Divinity Colossal Beast could not help but widen his eyes as he looked at Tsing Hui, who seemed to be at the end of his rope just a second ago. This is impossible. Even the most powerful among the descendants of the Master of Chaos can't exhaust a Divinity Colossal Beast with divine system power to death in the chaotic void. How can you? Even the most powerful Divinity Colossal Beast can't exhaust a Divinity Colossal Beast with divine system power to death in the chaotic void, but I can. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, the aura on his body gradually changed. A trace of essence that belonged to a chaotic life form dissipated, reflecting the surrounding chaotic vital energy. For a moment, the chaotic vital energy, which was like a corrosive poison to ordinary cultivators, was absorbed by Tsing Hui and turned into energy to replenish the energy he consumed when flying at full speed. In just a moment, his aura had completely recovered to its peak state. This chaotic life form? You are a chaotic life form? A chaotic life form in the growth stage. Feeling the change in Tsing Hui's aura, the Divinity Colossal Beast was in complete despair. He, an ordinary life form, was actually competing with a chaotic life form in the chaotic void. This was equivalent to a human competing with a fish in diving time. There was no other way to describe it other than seeking death. Divinity Colossal Beast, who realized this, could not help but laugh hysterically. Chaotic life form, I'm actually competing with a chaotic life form in the chaotic void. Upon seeing this, Tsing Hui silently retreated a distance away. Divinity Colossal Beast would undoubtedly be dragged to death by him using the chaotic void's special environment. He did not want to suffer a desperate counterattack before he died. I'm finished, but I won't leave anything for you. You can forget about getting any resources from me. Sinister and despicable chaotic life form. One day, the great Master of Gods will find you and tear your body apart, skin you alive, and pull out your tendons to avenge me. I believe that day won't be too far away. Divinity Colossal Beast laughed hysterically. Then, the Divine Kingdom began to collapse under his control and eventually evolved into a special existence similar to a black hole. However, the primal chaos void was different from the endless void. It was filled with a large amount of primal chaos energy. The hole created by the Divinity Astral Beast's self-destruction only created a sizable whirlpool, which was quickly filled by the endless stream of primal chaos energy. It was like a ship sinking in the middle of the sea. Aside from leaving a trace, it would not cause any ripples in the sea. A divine creation artifact is in my hands. Tsing Hui recorded the scene of Divinity Colossal Beast's death and deleted the scenes related to the chaotic life form. Then he put it away with satisfaction. This was related to whether he could successfully exchange for a divine creation artifact. Moreover, a good fortune divine artifact was related to the evolution of the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit, as well as whether or not he could rely on the Scarlet Abyss Sword to become in existence on par with the Grand Development Gate's master and several elders. It's time to return, Tsing Hui said with satisfaction. Then, he turned around and began to return the way he came. This kind of tactic of using the chaotic void's unique environment to exhaust a powerful opponent to death could be considered a routine. When the time came, it would definitely become his most powerful killing move. Since he did not need to use all his strength to return, Tsing Hui doubled the original 40-year journey. When he met up with Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord, Black Mirror Realm Lord, and Water Lord Clearwater in the territory of the Master of Gods, it was already 80 years later. From the departure from the territory of the Master of Chaos to completely killing Divinity Colossal Beast and returning to the territory of the Master of Gods, the four of them spent a total of nearly 200 years. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to kill a divine creation artifact. At the same time, Xinghui also had a deep understanding. As his cultivation continued to rise, the so-called concept of time by mortals had become more and more insignificant in his mind. Just like this battle to kill Divinity Colossal Beast, the total time spent was equivalent to 2 lifetimes of mortals. Sword God Xinghui, how is it? As soon as Xinghui returned, Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord could not wait to step forward and look at him expectantly. Xinghui directly played the video he recorded and said with a smile, "Please take a look, Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord." Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord looked at the information recorded in the video and could not help but laugh out loud. Dead, dead, finally dead. Divinity Colossal Beast, you also have a day like this. Black Mirror Realm Lord saw Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord's loss of composure and hurriedly explained for him, "Sword God Xinghui, please forgive him. Dragon Sword has been suppressed in his heart for too long." When he suddenly received this good news, he lost his composure. "I understand." Xinghui nodded understandingly and did not say anything more. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord was, after all, an existence who had cultivated to the great mystic realm. In the Great Development Sect, he was equivalent to a 4-mark deacon. After indulging for a moment, he quickly controlled his emotions and said gratefully, "Sword God Xinghui, it's all thanks to you. If you did not have that treasure, the few of us would not have been able to successfully kill Divinity Colossal Beast. Since I chose the Chaotic Void as the battlefield, and Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord really lured Divinity Colossal Beast to the Chaotic Void, I naturally have to give you a satisfactory answer." Xinghui said with a smile. "Sword God Xinghui, please take out your Identity Jade card," Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord said. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord said. Xinghui nodded and took out his Identity Jade card. As his Identity Jade card clashed with Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord's Identity Jade card, a message was transmitted from the Jade card that was connected to Xinghui's mind. His Identity Jade card had an additional 43,000 contribution points. Xinghui was slightly taken aback by this number. "Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord, is there a mistake with the contribution points you gave me? The mission said that it was 30,000. I know it's 30,000. The extra is actually because I want to express my gratitude. If it weren't for the fact that I've only accumulated 43,000 contribution points over the years, I would be willing to give it to you even if it were 50,000 or 60,000. Killing the Colossal Beast Divinity has always been my inner demon. It's just too important to me. Now that you've done this for me, Green Ruin Sword God, you've avenged me, I can't thank you enough." Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord spoke seriously, his face full of sincerity. Qing Su did not turn him down when he saw that. Otherwise, he would just be acting pretentious. "In that case, I thank Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord." Chapter 9:13. Buzz. Buzz. Streams of light overflowed. Xinghui and Water Lord Qingshui immediately appeared in the void battlefield of the 301 district, which was the largest in scale. When they arrived at the void battlefield, they did not stop at all and went straight to the Merit Audit Office. As Water Lord Qingshui did not deliberately hide his aura, the mysterious power of transforming his body into Tao immediately attracted the attention of countless cultivators who were exchanging various merit treasures in the Merit Audit Office. Most of them avoided and bowed their heads respectfully to show their respect when they saw Water Lord Qingshui. It should be known that even in the 301 district, which was the largest in scale, a great medium who could transform his body into Tao was still extremely rare. Now that a great medium had come out in person, the effect brought about by it naturally attracted the attention of countless people. "Okay, I'll leave it to you." Xinghui followed behind Water Lord Qingshui and directly handed the crystal that recorded the fall of the divine beast god to him. In fact, Xinghui is not the only one who doesn't want to expose yourself in front of the Master of Chaos. Am I not the same? In the end, our Grand Development Gate is not some honorable organization. Even if His Majesty the Master of Primal Chaos has tacitly approved of the competition between our Grand Development Gate's cultivators and the 12 divine beasts, if we are too arrogant, it will still cause His Majesty the Master of Primal Chaos to be dissatisfied. Waterlord Qingshui was somewhat helpless. After this, our 10,000-year agreement will end here. Xinghui said. Although there were only 6,000 to 7,000 years left before the 10,000-year agreement, Waterlord Qingshui was naturally more than happy to regain his freedom earlier. In addition to the strength and potential that Xinghui had shown in the battle with the divine beast god, clenching his teeth, Waterlord Qingshui finally agreed. Okay, I'll face the Master of Chaos for you and apply for a Creation Divine weapon. However, I can't guarantee that the Creation Divine weapon will meet your requirements. I understand. This kind of Creation Divine weapon often depends on luck. At worst, I'll exchange it with other experts who have Creation Divine weapons. Dao Lord Clearwater nodded. It was good that Xinghui understood this. At this moment, a dominator who had cultivated the Hunyuan's sacred body came to the audit office after hearing about the arrival of Lady Qingshui and Xinghui. He was slightly startled when he saw Lady Qingshui and Xinghui. He hurriedly bowed to them and said, "Greetings, Your Excellencies. I'm Gu Lang from the audit office. How may I be of service to you? I need to apply for a Fortune Divine artifact." Lord of Dao Qingshui said to the head of the Merit Audit Office. Creation Divine artifact. Gu Lang's breathing stagnated slightly. Applying for a divine weapon of creation, how shocking was this? However, considering the other party's identity as an almighty, he suppressed the shock in his heart, and his expression became even more respectful. "Sir, may I know if you intend to apply for an exclusive Creation Divine artifact or exclusive Destinable Divine artifact? I don't have that ability." Lord of Dao Lord Clearwater shook her head and handed the crystal that recorded the death of the divine beast god to Gu Lang. "I killed a divine master by chance. This is the proof." Gu Lang immediately took the crystal and said with his head lowered, "Sir, please rest inside. We'll go and verify it now." "Hurry up." "Yes, yes." Gu Lang agreed and asked someone to bring Xinghui and Lord of Dao Lord Clearwater to another courtyard while he made arrangements as fast as he could. The Lord of Chaos was different from other evil gods and creation beings. For other wretched gods and fortuned life forms, creating a Fortune Divine artifact wouldn't take much effort, but it would still take a toll on them. However, as the Lord of Primal Chaos, who stood at the pinnacle of all life forms in the Chaosverse, he had destroyed hundreds of thousands of fortuned life forms and wretched gods. Over hundreds of millions of years, he had accumulated quite a few Fortune Divine artifacts. That was why he was able to use them to motivate his subordinates in times of war and motivate them to do their best. Over the years, although there were not many almighties who had killed divine masters or 10 upper deities, a conservative estimate could barely reach 3 digits. Therefore, there was naturally a special process to apply for a Creation Divine artifact. In less than 3 days, Gu Lang had found Lord of Dao Qingshui again and said with joy, "Congratulations, Lord of Dao Qingshui, your application for a Creation Divine artifact has been approved. Our temple master has learned about this and is rushing over at full speed. He'll be here in less than a year. By then, our temple master will personally plead with His Majesty, the Lord of Chaos, to bear witness and then bestow upon you the Creation Divine artifact." "Is the Realm Guardian Temple Master coming in person?" Lord of Dao Qingshui was slightly moved. The Realm Guard Palace Master, also known as the Realm Guard, was one of the most powerful Dao Protector cultivators in the entire territory of the Master of Primal Chaos. Even without using his Divine Fortune artifact, his battle prowess was not inferior to a 5-vein or 6-vein Dao Protector. Once he used his Divine Fortune artifact, even the Elders of the Great Development Gate would be slightly inferior to him. Perhaps only the Sect Master with 8-vein Dao Protector could contend against him. The Creation Divine artifact is of great importance and naturally requires the Temple Master to handle it personally. Lord of Dao Qingshui nodded and said, "Then I'll wait for the Realm Guardian Temple Master to arrive." A year passed by quickly. After a year of waiting, the Realm Guardian came to the Merit Audit Office and quickly met Lord of Dao Qingshui. Then, he led Lord of Dao Qingshui to apply for the witness of the Great Lord of Chaos. At the moment of the witness, Xing Hui clearly sensed a terrifying divine sense that was so powerful that it suppressed the entire war zone, penetrated from the depths of the endless chaotic void and landed on the Merit Audit Office. The vast and endless power instantly made the millions of world creation, supremes, and sovereigns in the Merit Audit Office bow their heads in reverence. Some of them could not help but kneel in the direction of the divine sense, as if they were looking at a god. The Lord of Chaos. Xing Hui could not help but let out a long sigh when he felt the divine sense that was so powerful that it was almost substantial. The power contained in the divine sense had already made the coalescence great Tao in his body restless and instinctively counterattacked. Obviously, his coalescence great Tao felt that its life was threatened by the divine sense. But in reality, the divine sense's target was not him but Lord of Tao Qingshui. His coalescence great Tao was already restless when the Lord of Chaos divine sense did not look directly at him. Once the Lord of Chaos divine sense swept over him, all of his secrets would be exposed uncontrollably. From this point, Xing Hui deeply felt the gap between himself and the Lord of Chaos. It was an immeasurable gap. It was almost equivalent to a warrior and a world creation. It was also like a mortal and a blazing sun. The blazing sun's radiance could easily illuminate the world, but a mere mortal, how small was he in front of the blazing sun? Sighing emotionally, Qing Su lowered his head, no longer daring to look directly at the Lord of Chaos's soul sense. Even though the Lord of Chaos's usage of his soul sense could be described as crude, the experience he had accumulated over countless years allowed him to use his soul sense well beyond any cultivator of the immortal path civilization. It was just that he was too lazy to put in more effort because he was used to solving problems in simple and crude ways. An emperor of an empire with a population of 1 billion and an elite army of 10 million would not put in the effort to investigate the military strength of a hostile tribe with a total population of less than 1,000 people. The Lord of Chaos divine sense appeared briefly and quickly dissipated. For a great being like him, he no longer paid special attention to the matters in his territory. Most of his attention fell on the evil gods who were eyeing him covetously and the self-evolving eternal road. A few hours after the Lord of Chaos left, Lord of Tao Qingshui returned to Xing Hui's courtyard. "How was it?" Xing Hui hurriedly asked. "How was it?" Lord of Tao Qingshui smiled bitterly and said, "You definitely don't want to experience the feeling of being seen through from head to toe and having all of your secrets exposed in front of the other party again." After saying that, he became slightly more serious. He took down a huge sword from his back and handed it to Xing Hui. "Fortunately, I didn't let you down. Moreover, because I deliberately asked for a sword-type creation divine weapon, the Realm Guardian Temple Master also gave me a sword-type creation divine weapon as a reward. A sword-type creation divine weapon, Lord of Tao Qingshui, you've done me a great favor." Xing Hui's face was filled with joy and he immediately took the creation divine weapon. However, the moment his hand touched the creation divine weapon, the terrifying weight contained in the creation divine weapon, which seemed to form a universe of its own, exerted itself on Xing Hui, causing his bones to creak softly. If it were not for the great Tao principles in his body that immediately shot out and injected into the creation divine weapon and entangled it, he would not have been able to hold on to the creation divine weapon and let it fall to the ground. "TSK, you reacted quickly." Lord of Tao Qingshui looked regretfully at Xing Hui. Obviously, the prank had failed. Creation divine weapon. Xing Hui could clearly feel the structure of the creation divine weapon. Rather than calling it a creation divine weapon, it would be better to call it a miniature chaotic universe. However, no matter how miniature the chaotic universe was, its quality was not comparable to that of ordinary great Tao forces. If anyone could use this creation divine weapon and slash out with his sword, the great Tao would collapse and the world would collapse. In fact, if the power of this creation divine weapon was fully activated, the power and quality of the creation divine weapon alone would be enough to blow up a macro world. Even a top world like the vast macro world would not be an exception. Xing Hui, unless you plan to walk the path of a great Tao protector in the future and cultivate one kind of great Tao force to the extreme, the creation divine weapon will not be of much help to us. Moreover, because we cultivate several kinds of great Tao principles at the same time, we naturally won't be able to dig out every kind of great Tao principle to the extreme. If we force ourselves to use the creation divine weapon, it's like a child waving a sword. If we're not careful, we'll hurt ourselves. There are both pros and cons. Lord of Tao Qingshui did not understand why Tsing Hui would spend so much effort to exchange for a creation divine weapon. However, Tsing Hui did not explain and only smiled. Although a child may hurt himself by waving a sword, it's much more of a deterrent to the enemy than fighting with bare hands. That's true, but I always feel that this is not the most beneficial choice. Lord of Tao Qingshui shrugged and did not try to persuade him. Anyway, the merit points from killing a divine master are yours. You can spend it however you want. Chapter 9:14. Tsing Hui wanted to exchange for a creation artifact, and his ultimate goal was naturally the Scarlet Abyss Sword. After obtaining the creation artifact, he did not carefully study the mysteries of the creation artifact and directly handed it over to the Scarlet Abyss Sword. He had the Scarlet Abyss Sword circulate its cloud-weaving sword Tao to begin devouring the creation artifact. However, the creation artifact was far more powerful than ordinary artifacts. Even though Tsing Hui continuously circulated the power of the Grand Unity Tao, it still took a long time. For a time, Qing Su had no choice but to use over 40,000 contribution points to exchange for some cultivation resources for the people of the Chaotic Origin Sword sect. Afterwards, he returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World and entered secluded cultivation as quickly as he could. He did his best to assist the Scarlet Abyss Sword in devouring the fortune artifact completely within 1,000 years. Time flowed, and day and night were unwilling to part. 1,000 years passed in a hurry. In order to allow the Scarlet Abyss Sword to completely devour and refine the creation artifact before the Great Development Sect's operation to kill the ancestral Qilin, Tsing Hui continuously circulated the Grand Unity Tao for 1,000 years without rest. If not for the fact that his body already had a simulated immortal Tao civilization world, which was similar to the Origin Sacred Body's sealed environment that allowed the Grand Tao laws to circulate endlessly, he might have been exhausted to death by such a high output even though he was a creature of chaos. Fortunately, under this almost non-stop high-intensity refinement, Tsing Hui finally allowed the Scarlet Abyss Sword to completely devour the creation artifact 20 years before the Great Development Sect's operation to kill the ancestral Qilin. As the Scarlet Abyss Sword devoured the creation artifact, it transformed into the creation artifact's structure. Tsing Hui could clearly feel the Scarlet Abyss Sword's huge changes from inside out. At this moment, the Scarlet Abyss Sword was no longer the Scarlet Abyss Sword, but an extension of the chaotic universe created by Tsing Hui's Grand Unity Tao. He and the Scarlet Abyss Sword were like the primordial land of the immortal Tao civilization world and the 33 heavens floating above it. The only difference was that his primeval land was a simulation and did not live up to its name. On the other hand, the Scarlet Abyss Sword's 33 heavens were real and completely a part of the immortal Tao civilization. So, this is the true chaos life form. Compared to the small worlds of those who can create worlds with a single thought, the greatest characteristic of the chaos life form is limitless. Tsing Hui quietly sensed the Scarlet Abyss Sword in his hand. How do you feel? Father, I feel very heavy. The Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit's tone was intermittent. Is it very heavy? Tsing Hui understood the reason for Scarlet Abyss reaction. This was related to the current state of the Scarlet Abyss Sword. Strictly speaking, life forms at the primal chaos realm, the chaosverse they created, and the world of worlds they created were essentially the same. The reason why there was such a huge difference was because of the difference between the chaosverse and the world. It was the size and the increasing size. It was just like how a hill was made up of soil, and a star was also made up of soil. However, the hill could be raised to the ground, but who had the ability to dig up the entire star? Especially, it was extremely slow for a hill to become a mountain range, but this star was constantly absorbing meteors and satellites from the outside world to strengthen itself. Perhaps humans had just moved 100,000 tons of soil, but the star had already attracted a satellite to increase its mass by 1 trillion tons. Under such circumstances, the hill would never be able to reach or catch up to the star's growth. Buzz buzz. Within Tsing Hui's body, the laws of the great Tao poured into the Scarlet Abyss Sword. How do you feel now? Much more relaxed. Right now, I feel like I've become incomparably huge, incomparably powerful. However, I can only truly unleash this power with your help. Otherwise, if I rely on myself, the power I can use is equivalent to the tip of the iceberg. I understand. Tsing Hui's own comprehension, in addition to his conversation with the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit, allowed him to fully understand the changes of the Scarlet Abyss Sword. A divine creation artifact usually doesn't have an artifact spirit. Having the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit will make it easier for me to unleash the Scarlet Abyss Sword's power. As long as I can continuously pour energy into it, the Scarlet Abyss Sword will never be damaged, and its power will be guaranteed to be limitless under the highest circumstances. Although he understood the various changes of the Scarlet Abyss Sword, the time was too short. 20 years did not allow Tsing Hui to spend too much time and effort to continue researching the other powers of the Scarlet Abyss Sword. As he continuously increased the compatibility between his own laws of the Great Tao and the Scarlet Abyss Sword, he moved as fast as he could, heading straight for the Great Development Gate's encampment. After 10 years of hurrying, Tsing Hui finally arrived at the Great Development Gate's encampment in the Great Development Sky. As this was a large-scale internal operation of the Great Development Gate, when Tsing Hui arrived at the Great Development Sky, almost all the members of the Great Development Gate, who were usually cultivating in seclusion, rushed back. The auras of over 100 great masters, who were at least equivalent to experts, intertwined, forming a huge network that suppressed the world. Some cultivators who had not even cultivated the Origin's sacred body would be pushed back by the overlapping auras of the Great Tao just by approaching their circle. They might not even be able to stand in front of everyone. Sword God Tsing Hui, you're here. I haven't seen you in a while, Sword God Tsing Hui. As Tsing Hui appeared in the Great Development Gate, Heavenly Master Dragon Sword, Tao Lord Clearwater, and Yin Kongzi, who had cooperated with Tsing Hui before, smiled and greeted him at the same time. Tsing Hui also nodded at the three of them. Sword God Tsing Hui, I just received news that your name is among the teams that signed up to hunt down the ancestral Qilin. Do you plan to go as well? Heavenly Master Dragon Sword asked curiously. That's right. I want to try my luck. The ancestral Qilin is one of the divine beasts that is least skilled in battle and slaughter. As long as the Green Ruin Sword God is careful, you won't be in too much danger. However, you have to remember not to charge onto the front lines and fight the ancestral Qilin. The experts who have died over the years have basically all died because they were unable to control their greed and desires. Coupled with the fact that they failed to measure the difference between themselves and the ancestral Qilin, they all died in the encirclement of the ancestral Qilin. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword said cautiously. Yin Kongzi, who was at the side, added, Heavenly Master Dragon Sword has participated in 2 divine beast encirclements and survived both times. We should ask him for advice. Tsing Hui could not help but look at Heavenly Master Dragon Sword in surprise. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword could only smile bitterly and shake his head. Back then I was burdened with a blood feud. Naturally, I wanted to obtain great power at all costs. That was why I took risks time and time again and participated in the first 2 divine beast encirclements. However, in the first battle, I only circled around the periphery a few times. I was frightened by the violent battle scenes several times. If not for my good luck, I might not have made it back alive. As for the second time, I was able to obtain a great Tao nomological fragment. It was also a coincidence. Coincidence? Who doesn't happen to them? We were able to cultivate to this day and become top experts standing at the top of the world. Isn't it also because of coincidence and the blessings of the heavens? Tao Lord Clearwater said. When they heard that, they agreed. If their luck was extremely bad, they would not be standing in the Great Development Gate today and enjoying the glory of being at the pinnacle of the world of experts. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword, do you have any other suggestions? Tsing Hui asked. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword pondered for a moment and said cautiously, "Don't forget your true goal. Whether it's us, the Great Development Gate Master, or the Elders, our ultimate goal is not to kill the ancestral Qilin. The ancestral Qilin has been strengthened and replenished by the great Tao power of countless divine beasts and cultivators. Perhaps in terms of size, it can't compare to a true evil god or chaotic being, but in terms of recovery and endurance, it is not inferior to an evil god. Never think of exhausting a divine beast ancestor or completely killing it. Our true goal has always been only one, and that is the great Tao fragments in their bodies. Recovery and endurance are not inferior to an evil god or chaotic being. Xing Hui was no longer as ignorant as before about evil gods and chaotic beings. On the contrary, he had a full understanding of these terrifying existences. The more he understood how terrifying chaotic beings and evil gods were. Even if the ancestral Qilin did not possess the body of an evil god or a primal chaos life form, its astonishing recovery ability was enough to allow it to reach a state of near indestructibility. Unless a true evil god attacked, even if the ancestral Qilin stood there and did not fight back, the Grand Development Gate would still need tens of thousands of years to kill the ancestral Qilin. Never fight a divine beast ancestor head-on. What you need to do is wait for an opportunity to tear a law fragment from the ancestral Qilin's body. Moreover, it must be 100% chance. Any mistake can cause us to pay a heavy price, and this price is very likely our lives. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword's expression was extremely serious when he said this. Xing Hui also humbly accepted Heavenly Master Dragon Sword's advice. The guidance of a powerhouse who could survive the encirclement of two mythological beasts was definitely precious. Moreover, they had to deal with the mythological beast ancestor that was more than 10 times stronger than an ultimate powerhouse. Even if it was the mythological beast ancestor that was not good at killing, he could not be too careful. Just as everyone was talking, a sound came from the crowd. Then, 6 figures floated out from the depths of the Great Development Gate and landed on a high platform in the square where everyone was gathered. The Gate Master is here. Lord Gate Master and the 5 Great Elders. Great Development Saint Master, Unparalleled Realm Master, Annihilation Realm Master, Giant Dragon City Master, Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, Emperor Bai. Many of the Great Development Gate's disciples looked at the 6 top powerhouses descending from the sky, and their expressions were filled with reverence. These 6 were the ultimate experts who supported the entire Great Development Gate, and they also represented the pinnacle of the entire cultivation world. Although there were 2 or 3 others who relied on the creation divine weapons that were extremely compatible with them to barely reach the ultimate expert level, there were obvious flaws and they could not be considered ultimate experts. Chapter 9:15. The mission this time has already been distributed to everyone 2,000 years ago. Since everyone has decided to sign up, it means that you're all prepared. As such, there's no need for idle chatter. We've already locked onto the ancestral Qilin's location. Time is of the essence, and we're planning to depart now. If you withdraw now, it'll be your last chance. The Dayan Holy Sage's calm voice reverberated in the void. Although it was not loud, it rang in everyone's mind. 8 Great Path Precepts. Xing Hui looked at the Dayan Holy Sage in front of him. Light flowed in his eyes as if he could see the special connection between the Dayan Gate Master and the void. Under the effect of this connection, he seemed to have resonated with some kind of existence in the unseen world, so much so that he faintly touched an unknown realm. It was probably this connection that prompted him to create the Dayan Gate, which prompted him to kill the divine beast ancestor time and time again. He wanted to truly merge the great path precepts of the 12 divine beasts into one and advance to the realm of being on par with the evil god, or even the realm of creation. After the Dayan Holy Sage finished speaking, none of the 89 people present chose to withdraw. As a great path master, he would not make a decision easily. However, once he made a decision, it would be difficult for others to change it. Very good. Looks like no one has withdrawn. Then, the Dayan Holy Sage had a faint smile on his face. Then, he waved his hand and did not waste any time. Let's go. Then, the 6 ultimate powerhouses took the lead and leaped up. The remaining 89 people who had signed up followed the 6 ultimate powerhouses, forming a huge team of 95 people. They directly left the Dian Sky and headed toward the border of the chaotic void and the Master of Chaos territory. Not a single one of these 95 people was weak. Among them, the 6 supreme powerhouses were even figures who could preserve their lives before the incarnations of the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods. If they swarmed together, even the incarnation of the evil god would have to avoid them, let alone ordinary cultivators. This time, I'll treat it as gaining experience. It'll be great if I can get a great path fragment, but if I can't, I won't force it. Lord of Dao Qingshui sighed as she followed beside Xinghui. This time, the Grand Development Gate has made a big move. 95 members, which is unprecedented. I reckon the harvest will not be small. That's for those few utmost powerful beings. We should still follow Heavenly Sovereign Dragonsword's words and try our best to be careful. Lord of Dao Qingshui had a very proper attitude. He had an expression of, I'm lucky to have it, but if I don't, it's my fate. Xinghui didn't say much and quickly followed the group. Unlike the others, he decided to obtain some Grand Dao fragments. Only in this way would he be able to advance the speed of his cultivation and find the origin disk even faster, and it would establish the foundation for taking that final step. Under the lead of the Grand Yen Holy Master and a few elders, the group traveled quickly. They would occasionally enter the Master of Chaos territory and occasionally enter the Chaos Void. As the team continued to move forward, Xinghui gradually sensed the abnormality in the void. He could vaguely sense waves of invisible energy being drawn from the billions of worlds in the Master of Primal Chaos territory and poured into a certain spot in the Primal Chaos Void. After reaching that spot, the invisible energy would continue to feed back and fill every corner of the Master of Primal Chaos territory, causing some unknown changes. According to Xinghui's guess, these changes should be related to providence. The Grand Dao precepts controlled by the Qilin Divine Beast governed providence, opportunities, and so on. It didn't have any effect on one's combat strength, but in many cases, it could exert incredible effects. For example, when breaking through a realm, failure was imminent, but a little bit of luck could turn the crisis into safety. Another example was when refining a divine weapon failed on the verge of success, a little bit of providence could turn the situation around. This kind of energy was invisible, but it truly existed. Even almighty beings who were so powerful that they could transform their bodies into paths dared not say that their lives would not be affected by opportunities, providence, and other mysterious factors. The Master of Chaos is gathering the providence of the entire territory on the Qilin Divine Beast and trying to push it to the level of a chaotic being. Xinghui looked at the surging providence in front of him and sighed in his heart. We're almost there. Everyone restrain your aura. The Dian Holy Sage's voice was transmitted to everyone's mind. At that moment, all the almighty beings retracted their Grand Dao Precepts aura. At the same time, the Dian Holy Sage waved his hand and an invisible curtain of light enveloped everyone. For a moment, Xinghui clearly felt that the void he was in seemed to be cut apart by a mysterious force, making him independent of the world. It should be known that they were in the chaos void where precepts did not exist. To achieve this kind of space-cutting technique, a creation artifact. Xinghui quickly understood the source of this power. It was extremely difficult for any cultivator to obtain a creation artifact. Whether it was destroying the ultimate god system or killing 10 superior gods, the slightest carelessness could bring fatal threats to the cultivator. After all, the ultimate gods in the Master of Gods territory were different from the top almighty beings in the Master of Chaos territory. The Master of Gods did not have much property and had very few ultimate gods. If they were killed, it was very likely that the Master of Gods would seek revenge. On the other hand, the Master of Chaos had a huge property and did not feel any heartache even if a bunch of almighty beings died. Under such circumstances, even the strongest almighty beings would probably only have 1 or 2 creation artifacts at most. As everyone retracted their aura and moved deeper into the void, after flying for another half a month, a terrifying creature that was entrenched between the chaos void and the master of chaos territory appeared in front of them. It was a colossal creature that was as large as 10 trillion kilometers. It was entrenched in the void and constantly absorbed many streams of light from within the master of chaos territory to replenish itself. At the same time, it fed the streams of light back to the billions of worlds and billions of living beings in the master of chaos territory. Although its body was similar to the divine beast Qilin, it was not a physical body at all. In fact, it was countless tiny streams of light of different strengths. These streams of light were the power of precepts. Besieging the divine beast ancestor was not to kill him. In fact, it was to tear the power of precepts from his body and condense them into precepts fragments. When they were still a distance away from the Qilin ancestor, the group stopped. "Emperor Bai," the Grand Sage said. As an elder, Emperor Bai nodded and started to set up in the void. Light spots formed rapidly and absorbed the power of precepts that were going to enter the Qilin ancestor's body. At the same time, the giant Dragon City Master started to set up a formation. However, his formation was different from other formations. Instead of calling it a formation, it was more like an energy pool. Energy pools that were more than 10,000 kilometers in diameter filled the void. Very soon, there were more than 1,000 of them. Above the energy pools, a city that was more than 100 million kilometers in size gradually appeared. There were 7 chain-like existences in the city that were connected to the giant Dragon City Master. They continued to absorb energy from the giant Dragon City Master. In addition to the replenishment from the energy pools, the city gradually became clearer. In the center of the city, a huge cannon that looked like a dragon head was pushed out from the city wall and aimed at the Qilin ancestor. Other than that, Destruction Sector Lord, Wu-Yi Sector Lord, Bamboo Shadow Sword Master and a few others also started to set up their own formations. They even called everyone into the formation to become a part of a large-scale formation. A disc completely condensed from light and laws appeared in the Grand Yen Holy Exalt's hand. The disc shone with light, causing both the ripples of energy from everyone and the gradually trembling chaotic space to calm down rapidly. It was as if all the disturbances in space had been suppressed and smoothed out by an invisible force, such that they no longer existed. There are 3 major variables in the encirclement of the Qilin ancestor. The first is that the Guardians are taking advantage of the situation. The second is the attitude of the Master of Chaos. The last and most terrifying one is that the evil gods that are roaming outside will sense the fluctuations of the battle and intervene. The leader of the Grand Evolution sect has a mystical technique that can seal a huge void, causing 99% of the information in the void to be unable to be transmitted out in a short period of time. It is almost like stopping time for everything that is not living things. Under such circumstances, no matter how much we fight, we will not be noticed by anyone. Lord of Dao Qingshui's formation was not far away from Tsinghui. At that moment, he was communicating with his divine will. In order to participate in this operation, he had done a lot of preparation. Tsinghui nodded and looked at the Qilin ancestor. Although the supreme experts of the Grand Evolution sect had destinable divine artifacts to conceal their auras, as they attacked one by one, their auras could no longer be concealed. The Qilin ancestor, who was constantly devouring and feeding back the power of precepts, immediately sensed it. In particular, when he sensed that he was being targeted by the cannon of the giant Dragon City's city master, he roared and charged toward them at an incredible speed. As he charged, the ball of light that represented the endless power of precepts shot out endless streams of light at the same time. A mighty torrent of precepts followed closely behind him. However, strangely, the Qilin ancestor's violent movements and the rich power of precepts that swept out did not make any sound. Even the surrounding chaotic primal chi did not seem to be affected and was swept away in all directions. Instead, it was directly swept away, repelled, and annihilated by the power of precepts on the Qilin ancestor's body. This method is infinitely close to stopping time. Tsinghui felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, light shone brightly. The huge cannon above the giant Dragon City's city master's head suddenly shot out a stream of light that lit up the chaotic void and tore through the universe. This stream of light was like a peerless divine sword. With incredible speed, it slashed the Qilin ancestor's body that was engulfed in the power of precepts. Suddenly, white light collided with white light. Circles of white light that represented the power of precepts sputtered out from the Qilin ancestor's body and dissipated into the surroundings. It was quickly captured and absorbed by the formation that Emperor Bai had set up. The illusory power of precepts was then refined into precepts fragments. This is a piece of precepts fragment. Water Lord Qing Shui looked at Emperor Bai, who was setting up the formation and absorbing the power of precepts, with a tinge of envy in her eyes. The giant Dragon City's city master shot out 3 streams of light at the same time, blasting 3 holes in the Qilin ancestor's body. A large number of precepts fragments sputtered out. However, 3 attacks was the limit. The Qilin ancestor had already crossed the distance between the two of them and charged toward the battle formation formed by the 95 experts of the Great Development Sect. The close combat had officially begun. Chapter 9:16. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master and the Realm Lord of Annihilation. A green bamboo forest rose into the sky, turning into a mirage and piercing into the Qilin ancestor's body. Countless bamboo shadows transformed into sword chi and collided with the Qilin progenitor's radiant power of laws. Soon, the bamboo forest was annihilated. The only effect was that the laws in the area were slightly thinner. On the Qilin progenitor's body, the flowing law radiance around his abdomen dimmed slightly. Then, the Realm Lord of Annihilation stepped forward. His entire body was like a black hole, constantly devouring and destroying the incoming power of law. As the laws collided with each other, the Qilin ancestor's body, which had already dimmed a little, dimmed even more. From afar, it looked like a black spot had appeared on a glowing body. However, the devouring did not last long, and it was still full. In the end, the Realm Lord of Annihilation had to reduce the devouring range, choosing to protect himself. Prepare to attack. As the Realm Lord of Annihilation retreated, the Grand Yen Heavenly Sovereign shouted. In the next moment, the Qilin ancestor, who was like a huge ball of light, had already collided with the battle formation formed by the 95 experts of the Grand Development Sect. In an instant, Xing Hui, Lord of Dao Clearwater, and everyone in the Grand Development Sect seemed to be in a sea of light. The light of law was flying rapidly in all directions. When the light of law collided with the great path laws of the cultivators, it was destroyed, offset, and deflected. It was a constant battle of attrition. Some of the 4 to 6 vein-level cultivators couldn't help but leave their positions when they saw the large amount of power of laws splattering in front of them. They grabbed at the air and caught a large amount of the light of laws. They circulated their own laws to refine it. Although this light of laws wasn't enough to refine it into law fragments, it could still greatly increase a cultivator's comprehension of the great path laws of the Qilin Divine Beast. When Xing Hui saw this, he did not hesitate and followed the others to collect the great path laws that were like balls of light. Seeing this, Lord of Dao Clearwater was shocked and hurriedly said, "Sword God Xing Hui, don't act rashly. You'll attract the Qilin ancestors' attack." Almost as soon as Lord of Dao Clearwater finished speaking, the surroundings of the great masters who were collecting the power of law changed at the same time. The density of the power of law attacking them increased by several times. Countless laws that were like flowing lights were like a storm, rushing rain, rushing towards them. Those with stronger cultivations could naturally rely on the power of the formation to resist, but those with weaker cultivations would immediately be in danger. One of the great masters, who was only at the 3-vein level, had the seal formed by his power of laws quickly broken through by the dense streams of laws. The streams of laws quickly passed through his body. The light of Dao Clearwater, the great master of Dao Clearwater, as well as the great masters of Dao Clearwater's of Dao. However, it didn't take long for the aura of the great divine ability user to undergo a drastic change. his spiritual fluctuations also became extremely unstable. The of dows of dowses of dow of his of ofs. Tsing Hui saw the problem with the great master of Tao Clearwater at a glance. It was not a big deal that there was a problem with the operation of law. It was just like how a person might choke while drinking water. Most people would not be affected except for a short period of discomfort. But when a person's luck was at its lowest, choking to death while drinking water or eating food would become a matter of course in the eyes of ordinary people. Now, the great master of Tao Clearwater had a problem with the operation of law, which led to chi deviation. It was just like how a person choked to death while drinking water. It was hard to believe, but it was a matter of course. This was the Qilin ancestors' great path law attack. Perhaps it was not strong and could not destroy the enemy fundamentally, but the lethality it contained was equally strange and terrifying. It was impossible to guard against. Tsing Hui, be careful. The light of Tao Clearwater is coming for you. Just as Tsing Hui was inwardly awed, Tao Lord Clearwater's voice suddenly rang out. As Tsing Hui had refined a portion of the Great Path Law at the same time, the Great Path Law around him became denser. Countless Great Path Law lights formed by the Great Path Law were like a dense meteor shower that struck Tsing Hui's body. Tsing Hui's Golden Crow and Torch Dragon Great Path Law powers were instantly overwhelmed. They could no longer withstand the impact of the Great Path Law lights and were on the verge of collapse. As expected, if a 1-vein, 2-vein, or 3-vein cultivator wants to intercept the power of laws in this environment and refine it into law fragments, they're simply seeking death. Even if a 4-vein, 5-vein, or 6-vein powerhouse is targeted by the Qilin progenitor, only death awaits them. Tsing Hui thought to himself as the Scarlet Abyss sword appeared in his hand. Just as the Great Path Law lights tore through his Great Path Law defenses and were about to pass through his body, he brazenly stabbed out with his sword. Buzz buzz. As Tsing Hui stabbed out with his sword, the surrounding space that seemed to have been frozen in time actually trembled slightly, spreading out waves of ripples. These ripples instantly turned into shockwaves when Tsing Hui's Scarlet Abyss sword collided with the first Great Path Law light. They were so powerful that they could be called destructive shockwaves. The dense Great Path Law lights were rapidly annihilated under the impact of these shockwaves. They were like sand sculptures that were within the range of a bomb's shockwaves, disintegrating on the spot. For a moment, the dense Great Path Law lights that were rushing towards Tsing Hui could not help but clear up a little. The cultivators who were trying their best to resist the Great Path Law lights were naturally unaware of this sudden change. However, the Grand Derivation Holy Sage, who had stopped all the energy fluctuations in the area, and the supreme experts who were resisting the Great Path Law lights more easily, sensed this change at the same time. Their gazes all turned towards Tsing Hui at the same time. To be exact, their gazes landed on the Scarlet Abyss sword in Tsing Hui's hand. This is a destinable divine weapon? The Grand Derivation Holy Sage sized up the Scarlet Abyss sword for a moment and could not help but reveal a trace of shock on his face. A destinable divine weapon that is completely compatible with him? The power of the Great Path of the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon in him. He is not a guardian who has excavated the power of the Great Path Law to the extreme. If he does not excavate the power of the Great Path Law to the extreme, how can he bear the power of a destinable divine weapon? How can he unleash the true power of a destinable divine weapon? The giant Dragon City Master, Emperor by the Rui Realm Lord, the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, and the others were all shocked. As a result, the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, who was too distracted, was almost invaded by the dense Great Path Law lights. Fortunately, he had a powerful treasure on him that quickly repelled the Great Path Law lights, allowing him to escape from danger. The giant Dragon City Master, Emperor by the Rui Realm Lord, and the others who were filled with curiosity and confusion about the crisis that befell the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master. They were besieging the ancestor of the godly beasts, the Qilin. It was not the time for them to be distracted. If they were not careful, even the most powerful of them could die. If they had any questions, it would not be too late to ask them after the battle. At the thought of this, the few most powerful of them quickly shifted their gazes. However, when they were free, they diverted some of their attention to Tsinghui. After all, it was too important for them to be able to unleash the true power of a destinable divine weapon. If they, who had cultivated 7 or 8 types of great path law, could still use the destinable divine weapon and unleash the full power of the treasure, their fighting power would definitely increase by another level. By then, it would be much easier for them to kill the other ancestor of the godly beasts to obtain more fragments of the great path law lights. Sword God Tsinghui, you are. Seeing that Tsinghui was able to shatter all the nomological light streams around him, Lord of Water Dao's eyes widened. Then he seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that destinable divine weapon? Tsinghui nodded slightly and said at the same time, it's related to that destinable divine weapon. I can't explain it to you in detail. You can unleash the full power of a destinable divine weapon. This is something that only the owner of a destinable divine weapon can do. Lord of Water Dao finally understood why Tsinghui chose to exchange the merit points of killing an ultimate god for a destinable divine weapon. If he had such ability, he would also try to get a destinable divine weapon. Lord of Water Dao, come closer to me. As long as the nomological light streams are not too dense, I can still help you a little. Tsinghui said. Thank you, Sword God Tsinghui. Lord of Water Dao was overjoyed. At that moment, Tsinghui continued to collect the power of laws without attracting too much hostility from the Qilin ancestor. He then condensed the power of laws into the nomological fragments. In the first round of attack, the people from the Great Development Sect did not suffer any other losses except for a greedy 3-stripe great ability user. Of course, there were a few people who were penetrated by the nomological light streams and had a part of their luck taken away. However, they clearly had the protection of other treasures. In addition to their stable realms and exquisite cultivation, they did not suffer from Qigong deviation like the 3-stripe great ability user and died tragically. The first round of attack did not kill the people from the Great Development Sect. Instead, they lost a lot of power of laws. The Qilin ancestor was furious. His body that was completely composed of nomological light streams suddenly turned and a sharp claw condensed from a large number of nomological light streams directly grabbed the 6 supreme experts who were setting up the formation. Although the sharp claw was also composed of nomological light, the density of nomological light streams was beyond everyone's imagination. It was like a dazzling sun that emitted a light that made people not dare to look directly at it. Change the formation. The Dayan Heavenly Sovereign growled and the formation quickly changed. However, with the formation, while its resistance was strengthened, it naturally sacrificed a lot of flexibility. Although the Dayan Heavenly Sovereign changed the formation in time to avoid the core of the Qilin ancestors' thunderous attack, under the impact of the dense nomological light streams, many great ability users who were in danger still disregarded the stability of the formation and escaped. In this way, they naturally kept their lives, but the formation became fragmented. Seeing this, the Dayan Heavenly Sovereign stopped rearranging the formation and said faintly, "Let's rely on our own abilities from now on." Chapter 9:17. Be careful. Seeing the formation disperse, Qing Su called out to Dao Lord Clearwater. Lord of Dao Clearwater looked at the Qilin progenitor wreaking havoc and smiled bitterly. A battle of this level isn't something I can easily get involved in. I'll leave the battlefield and attack if I have the chance. If not, I'll just treat it as an experience. All right. Tsinghui nodded. Lord of Dao Clearwater quickly flew out of the Qilin progenitor's enormous body. Since the Qilin progenitor's main firepower was attracted by the 6 sovereigns of the Great Development Sect, he was too lazy to deliberately target Lord of Dao Clearwater's departure. In fact, it wasn't just Lord of Dao Clearwater. After the formation was destroyed and everyone fought their own battles, more than a dozen 1-vein to 3-vein great masters left the battlefield. They originally thought that the Qilin progenitor's battle prowess was weaker than the other divine beast ancestors, so they wanted to get a share of the loot. However, when the real battle erupted, they discovered that even though the Qilin progenitor was much weaker than the other divine beast ancestors, he was still far stronger than ordinary great masters like them. If they continued to fight, they would only be throwing their lives away. Therefore, they decisively chose to leave the battlefield. Although more than a dozen 1-vein to 3-vein great masters left, there were still 70 or 80 cultivators left. The Qilin progenitor still had a hard time being surrounded. His power of laws was constantly being stripped away by various methods and refined into law fragments. The battle didn't last long. Everyone obtained at least 20 law fragments from the Qilin progenitor. Most of them belonged to the sovereigns. The remaining 5-vein and 6-vein great masters also got a few. Xing Hui took advantage of the fact that the Qilin progenitor was distracted by the 6 sovereigns to absorb a large amount of power of laws and condense it into a law fragment. This operation wasn't completely fruitless. There are fewer and fewer people. When Xing Hui completed the smelting of the second nomological fragment, he could clearly feel a certain amount of pressure. Even though the Qilin ancestor spent most of his energy on dealing with the 6 sovereigns, there were fewer and fewer people who stood in his way. Coupled with the fact that the Qilin ancestor had consciously shrunk his body to increase the density of the streams of laws, the streams of laws would still reach Qing Su from time to time even with the Scarlet Abyss sword in hand. As the battle progressed, the number of great masters who had died had already broken through to 6. The 6 of them included a 5-vein and 2 4-vein attendants. Condense another law fragment and then leave the battle. Xing Hui thought to himself. He grabbed at the air, and a large amount of flowing light of laws began to condense in his hand. Under the binding of his power of the Great Path, they began to melt the law fragments. However, perhaps because he was a little too impatient, or perhaps because the number of combatants had already been reduced to less than 50, his actions immediately attracted the attention of the Qilin ancestor. Immediately, streams of laws that were much denser than before immediately whistled towards the green ruins like a storm. Oh no! Seeing this scene, Xing Hui did not hesitate to give up on condensing the law fragments. He retreated rapidly, using all his strength to dodge the attacks of the nomological light. At the same time, he stabbed out with the deep red sword in his hand. It seemed to contain the power of a chaotic universe as it vibrated in front of him, causing the storm of nomological light to shatter and explode. An empty black hole seemed to appear in front of him. However, this black hole did not stop for a moment. More nomological light surged over, filling up the black hole in an instant. Even though Xing Hui had used this precious time to dodge, more than 6 nomological lights still rushed toward him and pierced through his body. The moment the nomological light pierced through his body, Xing Hui's illusory world, which was formed from the Great Path of Unity and the 49 Great Path nomological laws, shook violently. An indescribable malfunction seemed to occur in the operation of the Great Path, and it looked like it was about to collapse. Fortunately, Xing Hui had used the Great Path of Unity and the 49 Great Path nomological laws to create the illusory world of immortal Tao civilization. Moreover, his world was illusory and not real. Although the 6 nomological light streams that passed through his body caused the world of immortal Tao civilization to shake, they did not cause the entire world to collapse. It did not cause him to fall into the terrible situation of his world collapsing. Even so, this sudden tremor still caused Xing Hui to break out in a cold sweat. I can't continue like this. Perhaps my attacks with the deep red sword have reached a level that is not inferior to that of an ultimate powerhouse, but the techniques I have are too simple. In the end, I can't compare to a true ultimate powerhouse. At the very least, I can't block the violent attacks of these nomological light streams. When he thought of this, Xing Hui turned around and headed toward the periphery of the Qilin ancestor's body. The closer he got to the periphery, the fewer nomological light streams there were, and the degree of danger was greatly reduced. It was like a star. Although its core and surface were both shining brightly, the difference in temperature between the two was like heaven and earth. There was no danger in the periphery, but correspondingly, it was much more difficult for them to intercept nomological light streams and refine them into nomological fragments. Xing Hui did not completely leave the Qilin ancestor's body. He stayed at the periphery, trying his best to intercept as much nomological power as possible and refine them into nomological fragments. However, compared to the condensation speed at the center, the efficiency at the periphery was more than 10 times slower. So be it, Xing Hui said to himself. He now had 2 nomological fragments. It would be best if he could successfully condense the third one, but if he could not, he would not force it. Just as Xing Hui was carefully condensing the third nomological fragment, an extremely strong stream of light suddenly exploded. Immediately after, one of the sharp claws on the Qilin ancestor's body that contained a large amount of nomological power was torn off by the bamboo shadow sword master and sent flying into the void. Seeing this scene, the eyes of all the powerful beings lit up. They quickly rushed toward the claw that had been cut off, each of them doing their best to plunder the nomological power contained in the claw and refine it into nomological fragments. Even Dao Lord Qingshui, who had been watching from the side, was no exception. Great harvest! Great harvest! It's definitely a great harvest. The nomological power in this claw can be refined into at least 10 nomological fragments. I finally have a chance. Thank you, Elder Zhuing. In an instant, the claw that had been cut off was surrounded by more than 40 powerful beings. Each of them unleashed their techniques to the extreme in a futile attempt to refine the nomological power in the Qilin ancestor's claw. Rumble! After being cut off, the Qilin ancestor seemed to be completely enraged. He roared furiously and his body struggled madly. In an instant he managed to break free from the Dayan Holy Master's special spacetime abhijna. In an instant, a terrifying roar mixed with chaotic aura swept out in all directions. It was as if a violent storm had formed, blowing away all the powerful beings who were rushing toward the Qilin ancestor's claw. After breaking free from the restraining power, the nomological power from the Master of Chaos territory that Emperor Bai had been trying to refine into nomological fragments quickly broke through Emperor Bai's formation and entered the Qilin ancestor's body. This caused the nomological power in the Qilin ancestor's body to recover rapidly. In fact, it was as if it had exploded and continued to grow. With the replenishment of the nomological power, the Qilin ancestor became even more valiant. As the bamboo shadow sword master had cut off one of his claws, the Qilin ancestor stared at the bamboo shadow sword master this time. He attacked the bamboo shadow sword master relentlessly. Seeing that the Qilin ancestor was completely enraged by the bamboo shadow sword master, Xing Hui's eyes flashed. He charged into the Qilin ancestor's body and used all his strength to steal the nomological power from the Qilin ancestor's body. Although the Qilin ancestor was furious that a large amount of nomological power had been stolen, he used many nomological powers to attack Xing Hui. However, his real focus was on the bamboo shadow sword master. The nomological powers that he used could not do any real damage to Xing Hui, who had the divine sword Red Abyss. The fierce and mighty battle swept up waves of terrifying torrents, crazily reverberating in the void for hundreds of trillions of kilometers. If this battlefield was moved to the void, it would not take long for an entire galaxy to be destroyed. After being stared at by the Qilin ancestor, the bamboo shadow sword master could not hold on for much longer. Even though the Dayan Holy Master, Destruction Sector Master, Wu Yi Sector Master, Giant Dragon City Master and the others were attacking the Qilin ancestor to distract him, and Emperor Bai was helping the bamboo shadow sword master block the nomological power storm created by the Qilin ancestor, the bamboo shadow sword master was still unable to hold on. The Qilin ancestor has gone mad. The bamboo shadow sword master cannot hold on any longer. We have already gained enough. Let's not make any unnecessary sacrifices. Let's go. Seeing this, the Dayan Holy Master made a prompt decision and shouted, I will cover the rear. Retreat. Many of the Grand Development Gate's almighty masters had already refined the Qilin's claw. Seeing how crazy the Qilin progenitor was, they didn't dare to face it head-on. After receiving the order from the Grand Development Holy Sage, they quickly soared into the sky and flew towards the Master of Primal Chaos territory at full speed. It's time to leave. No one can stop the crazy Qilin ancestor. Once the Grand Yen Holy Master and the others leave, the Qilin ancestor, who has nowhere to vent his anger, will set his sights on me. I'm afraid that only death awaits me. I've already completed the condensation of the fourth fragment. The harvest is definitely plentiful. It's enough. At this moment, Qing Su dared not waste any more time. He quickly joined the fleeing group from the Grand Development Sect, running towards the territory of the Master of Primal Chaos as quickly as he could. The 12 mythical beast ancestors were special life forms that were between normal life forms and chaotic life forms. They could not enter the Master of Chaos territory. As long as they could return to the Master of Chaos territory, they would be out of danger. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.